My entitled manager refuses to pay me a fair wage, as they literally take off 2 hours of my work every single shift. So I decided to get some revenge by literally refusing to show up to work while also going around town and ruining his reputation, resulting in his business being closed down 4 months later. And with all things considered, I'm honestly really satisfied with the way this all went down because my manager was a jerk and he definitely deserved it. Here's what happened. When I was a student, I had a few bad casual jobs, and one of them was arriving at 5 o'clock in the morning to sort out the deliveries made to a paper shop from different printers. I started the day by parking at the owner's house and picking up the van. I'd drive to the shop and I'd have to sort out about 500 to 700 different papers and anywhere up to like 300 different magazines. There was generally a 3-page list I had to work through in a short time. I'd have to wrap the personal deliveries in cling wrap and put the orders for corner stores into their own separate boxes so I could just drive around reading my list and toss them out the van window onto lawns or deliver to shops in the shortest time possible. It wasn't a great job, and you could not make any mistakes, because otherwise there would be angry phone calls from shops or people who missed out on an order. The owner's shop always had a certain number of pickups, and he'd like to have about 50 left over for casual walk-in customers. I had to deliver to shops and direct to people. By 6 o'clock in the morning, I had to deliver to shops and then drive around for about 4 hours throwing the rest on lawns. On top of this, if the printers were short on what they delivered, which was pretty common, I'd have to short the corner stores on their deliveries and cop their mistreatment so that there were enough papers for the owner's shop, and he never missed out on having enough stock. Needless to say, it's not an appealing job, even if the job description was all that you looked at, but the owner underpaid me by about 2 hours for every shift. I only did this on Saturdays and Sundays, but I requested that he pay me correctly for about 15 weeks running, and he slowly increased the amount I was shorted and would then pay me about a third of the money I was shorted by every few weeks. And while I wasn't stupid, I am in fact slow to get angry. Then he started telling me that I had to wash the van out of my own pocket before dropping it at his house, and this is because he was trying to sell it. It was also starting to need frequent repairs. I asked him to leave the money there for the car wash, and he told me to do it out of my own pocket, and he would add the car wash fees to my pay. But you know what? I didn't wash that van once, as I seriously doubted I would ever get reimbursed. Plus, I was already pretty angry about the money I was missing. He called me up after I left Sunday and told me off about the van not being washed. And you know what? That was the last straw for me, but I didn't quit right on the spot. Instead, I fumed about it for a day or two before finally making a plan to get my revenge. The following Saturday, I slept in just a little bit. Basically, instead of getting there when I was supposed to, I decided to lay in bed. When the first of the corner stores reported that they were missing their deliveries, the owner rang me up and asked me if I knew what time it was, to which I responded, yes, I do. He then asked me, do you know what day it is? And I said, yes, it's Saturday. To which he then said, okay, well then why are you not at work? And it's here that I said to him, well, because I'm not coming. You've ripped me off in my pay almost every week since I started. Once I said that, he then said to me, well then who's going to be doing the deliveries? To which I responded, well, why should I care? And to top it all off, he actually asked me if I was coming in tomorrow, to which I responded resolutely, absolutely not. I gave him about 10 seconds to process it and then told him to delete my number. I then later did the corner store loop, and I explained to them that he would often short them on their orders just to ensure that he wasn't low on stock, as well as not paying his delivery drivers, and frankly advised them to hit up one of the other paper shops to arrange getting their orders through them. Well, much to my happiness, about 4 months later, the shop permanently closed. And I hope that I played a small part in that by letting his reputation get ruined, but that's honestly the most satisfying way I've ever left a job, because these people absolutely deserved it. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. First and foremost, anybody who doesn't pay their employees on time, or at all for that matter, are giant pieces of garbage. I have dealt with this firsthand as a teenager, and let me tell you something. It is demoralizing and it is very scary. Here you have a grown adult who's supposed to be paying you a wage that you agreed upon, and they're literally just not paying you what they're supposed to. They're taking advantage of you, they're doing things that are just sketchy and under the table, and that is so toxic and illegal. You have to pay people what they're worth. Like, you can't just walk around and be like, oh, I'm gonna pay you like a third of what you're owed. It's like, no, dude, you're not gonna take 2 hours off of my workday and then not pay me for those 2 hours. You're absolutely gonna pay me for what I'm worth, and you're gonna pay me for the time I actually did my job. So I love the fact that the original poster literally played a role in shutting that business down. And based on how quickly this went down, I guarantee that the original poster was probably like the match that lit the flame and burned that place to the ground. Because dude, their shop closed in 4 months. It must have been a really crappy business for one person to essentially and inevitably literally take it down. So good for the original poster. I love that this happened, and honestly, this manager absolutely deserved it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk scams me with his Airbnb business by literally giving me a room that I never even wanted in the first place. But after enduring all of his nasty comments as well as his threats, I decided that enough was enough, as I literally reported this guy to the police and pretty much anybody who would listen that what he was doing was illegal and he was definitely breaking the law. And honestly, I'm so satisfied because I know for a fact that he is going to have a lot of problems, especially after I found out that this guy was here only on a student visa. Here's what happened. To start things out, I needed a room for 6 weeks in a big German city. So I went on Airbnb in September and I found a room. The Airbnb description said it had Wi-Fi, a window in the kitchen, and was close to where I would be working. I got along with the owner, I exchanged numbers, and asked whether we could find a solution without using Airbnb. We then agreed that I would pay directly and avoid any of their fees. Well, later on, I suddenly received a new address for the apartment. When I arrived, I found out he was renting out a student dorm room. And trust me, this was never mentioned in the description. There was no Wi-Fi, the photos didn't match, and the apartment was very dirty. Now, I needed the room, so I paid him the agreed amount, which is the same price we had agreed on for the original Airbnb apartment. But immediately, I was confronted with his rules. He said no guests in the house, and if he found out, I would have to pay. If the apartment was dirty, he would charge me extra, and by the way, these were all presented as threats. Over the following weeks, every time I raised an issue, he threatened me with extra costs and insulted me. Well, I then started digging, and I found out he was a subtenant of a subtenant of a subtenant. He had found the student apartment only 5 days before I moved in and lied to the tenant above him, saying that I was a friend. He paid around 400 euros for the whole period while charging me 800 euros, never even mentioning the Airbnb. He is a student and openly bragged about running illegal Airbnbs as a side hustle, which is, by the way, all alongside his studies. He's not allowed to do this because his visa just does not permit it. Well, because the insults and the threats continued, I reported his Airbnbs to the German authorities. The city has a platform to report illegal Airbnbs, and it was easy since all 6 of his listings were visible on his Airbnb profile. I also reported him to the German finance authorities as they investigate untaxed business activity. And finally, I sent all the screenshots over to the police. I also knew that his visa was all the way until 2026, which means he's gonna have a lot of fun explaining to them exactly why he wasn't studying. Okay, this is one of those situations where it's like, dude, they absolutely shot themselves in the foot. First of all, if you're running illegal Airbnb businesses, you are bound to get in trouble. Like, you really are gambling your future, especially if you're there on a visa, dude. Why would you risk it? Why not just study and get your stuff done? There's no reason to try and run a scam. What are you thinking? It's also really disheartening that he tried to be like, oh, if you don't do this, you're gonna be in trouble. You're gonna have to pay extra, while also throwing out these insults. It's like, dude, what are you thinking? This is so stupid. So I'm really glad that the original poster reported them, and I hope they get in trouble, because this guy was completely out of line and he had no business doing this in the first place. My parents revealed to my brother and his girlfriend that we were initially planning on not inviting his girlfriend to our wedding simply because she's been very rude to me and my family. And despite the fact that we changed our mind and invited her anyways, my parents decided to tell them the truth, putting me and my fiance in a situation that we truly never asked for. Here's what happened. So my fiance and I have been together for about 6 years. My brother and his girlfriend, who I will call Sophia for the sake of the story, have been together as a couple for about 2 years. My fiance and I are getting married next week, and we've had conversations about not inviting Sophia to the wedding for various reasons. For starters, she's being rude to my parents, in particular my mother, and in general, she's not a very pleasant person to talk to, and she is kind of standoffish. She makes no effort with me or my fiance at getting to know us, or even spend time with us, despite multiple attempts from us to spend time with her. Also, she makes rude comments about my personality and my profession. So, following this, I approached my parents, who, by the way, had repeatedly showed their frustrations about her over months with me, and it's here that I told my parents that we wouldn't be inviting Sophia to our wedding. Following this, my parents immediately shared their concerns that this would break up the family. Now, at this point, there were approximately 18 months until the wedding, and I did not want to speak to my brother about this situation, and I wanted some time to think about it following my parents sharing their concerns. Well, weeks passed by, and my fiance and I decided that we would invite Sophia to the wedding, as it simply was not worth the argument. I then told my parents about this change and left it at that. I never told my brother about this, and didn't speak to him about this either, because honestly, there was no reason to bring it up. What followed is that weeks after this, my parents drove up to my brother's and Sophia's home, which by the way, we live on opposite sides of the country from each other, and individually told both that Sophia wouldn't be invited to our wedding, and told them about frustrations that we, namely my fiance and I, had shared with my parents about Sophia. Now, I only found out about this months after when my brother started ignoring my text messages and my calls. So I confronted my parents and they confessed that they had told my brother and Sophia, and I'm now being painted out to be someone who's breaking up the family, as well as being told that I need to apologize to Sophia for the hurt that I've caused. Now, there is obviously a lot more to it than that, but I've tried to keep it as factual and unbiased as possible. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because this honestly is incredibly messy. Oh my gosh, this is absolutely not your fault. You literally got over it and said, okay, we're just gonna invite her. It's not that big of a deal. It's not worth the argument. Let's just do it. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. But if there is anybody in this situation who absolutely is to blame, it literally is your parents. Like, these people suck. They seriously can't keep their mouths shut, despite the fact that they also share the same frustrations. Like, they're the ones that feel the exact same way about Sophia, but they're now painting it like, oh, you two have absolutely got to apologize. I can't believe you would say these things about Sophia. You know, the things that you didn't want to be shared in the first place. Like, holy crap, why did they stir the pot like that? That is so inappropriate. If they just kept their mouths shut, none of this would have happened in the first place. So for them to pretend like you've caused this horrible hurt in the family when they're literally the ones that did it is just so crazy in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk. You literally invited Sophia, you decided not to put up with any kind of garbage that would come from not inviting her, and you let it go and moved on. And if there's any fallout about them finding out the truth, then that's on your parents and not you. Because this was already taken care of and these people decided to make it way worse. My parents expect way too much out of me after I moved back in when I fell on hard times, as they demanded that I not only pay rent, but also clean and take care of literally everything else in the house. But thankfully, I've got my own place now, so I can finally get out of there and not look back. Here's how it all happened. Okay, I'm just honestly beyond frustrated and unhappy, and I mainly just need to get some things off my chest. For starters, I had to move home unexpectedly and temporarily, and when I got in the house, my parents asked me to pay rent, as well as take care of like a majority of the household chores, and their animals. In my perspective, if I'm paying rent, I'm a tenant. I treat the situation as roommates and I clean up after myself and I buy my own groceries, etc. They said there are no expectations, yet they complain and act passive-aggressive towards me if something isn't done to their liking. They say that I don't do anything and that it's a problem, but even though I do pitch in, it's still not enough. It's uncomfortable to be around people that treat you like that, not to mention make you feel unwelcome. I don't know if they think that because I'm their child, that they're somehow entitled to a live-in maid. I work full-time and I'm attending college. That's definitely just not gonna happen. Not to mention that they literally make well over 6 figures and they are very comfortable in life. So it just feels like a bit of greed, especially when I'm struggling a bit right now. I'm only home for like a couple of months just to get back on my feet. They've never even rent the room that I'm staying in out. So it's not like they're missing out on any profit. Well, needless to say, I got my own place and I'm leaving in about a month because this situation is not worth the mental stress and the headache. Okay, I'm so glad the original poster did that because that would have been my suggestion. Holy crap, your family sounds super entitled. They expect you to pay rent and then literally just do everything around the house. Like, what is happening right now? It feels like one of those family dynamics where it's like, oh, you can move in with us, but if you're going to move in with us, prepare to be our slave. And it's like, dude, what are we talking about? No, I don't want to do that. I just need to get back on my feet. I can't handle this kind of stress and like be expected to do everything. So yeah, getting your own place was like the best decision you could possibly make. I'm planning on doing an Irish goodbye to my boyfriend, where I secretly move out and break up with him all in the same day. But despite the fact that he's treated me terribly and said so many awful things, I'm stuck in a tricky situation where I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to handle the dog we bought. Because technically my boyfriend owns him, even though I'm the one that takes care of it. As this dog means the world to me and I really want to take him with me, putting me in a situation where truly I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I'm planning to break up with my boyfriend and move out in about 3 weeks. I haven't told him yet because he has a temper and has threatened to kick me out before without reason. My plan is to move out all my stuff and then tell him that I've left. Now, for reference, I'm a 22-year-old female and my boyfriend is 32 years old. And yes, we live in his house. And before you say anything about the age gap, yeah, I know, I feel really stupid. There are lots of reasons why I'm leaving him. For starters, he has anger issues and calls me terrible names. Also, the lies, the cheating, and gaslighting just honestly give me constant anxiety. After almost 2 years of being together, together, I finally found a place to move to. A whole upstairs suite with a backyard, 2 rooms, a living room, a bathroom, and a kitchen all to myself, plus they allow dogs. And I've got to say, the moment I sent the deposit, I felt instant relief. The tricky part is our dog by the name of Doodle. Technically, he paid for the dog and I got to pick him up, but I'm the primary caregiver. I trained him, I woke up every night when he cried as a puppy. Meanwhile, my boyfriend did nothing. I take him to classes and I take him to get groomed, and I provide for all of his care and supplies, not to mention his foods, treats, and just taking him for walks. I work from home, and that was the reason we got him in the first place. The dog is very attached to me, and I am very attached to him, unlike my boyfriend who barely does anything to care for him other than filling his food and water. My boyfriend has even threatened the dog before, once even saying that he might take him to the shelter, and that we would need to break up so that I can take him, and has even made other violent comments about the dog. He also works a lot and isn't home regularly. His parents, who used to take care of his old dog years ago, can't take full responsibility for the dog now, as they have 2 new grandchildren they take care of. I haven't asked him if I can take the dog, or even told him that I'm moving out in 2 weeks, and this is because, of course, he has anger issues. He's threatened to kick me out once before for no reason, and I'm afraid he might refuse, take the dog elsewhere, or just react really badly. I'm also worried about being unfair for taking the dog without asking and leaving without any notice or explanation. I'm thinking about either writing a text or leaving a note. Most people I've talked to say that I'd be the better option for the dog, as I would give it more time and care, and it would be in a safe environment. Because right now I'm very confused and I don't know what to do. Okay, everybody in the comment section pretty much says the same thing, because in my opinion, if this guy is literally this violent and angry all the time, then leaving without saying anything is absolutely okay. Seriously, get your stuff and get out of there. I say the sooner the better. But when it comes to the dog, the original poster has clarified that yeah, the boyfriend is listed as the owner at the vet. So if you take the dog, I really just don't know what's gonna happen from there. I'm not sure if he's gonna retaliate in some way or try to take you to court for stealing it, but it's pretty obvious that this dog is absolutely yours. You are the one that raised it, you deserve that dog, and he would be much better off with you than with this guy. So regardless, I think you really need to be careful in the way you're leaving this guy. It would be nice to just leave a note or say nothing and be like, I'm gone, see ya, we're breaking up. But in the middle of all of this, you've got this dog that belongs to your boyfriend technically, and I'm willing to bet this guy sounds petty enough where he might just try to take you to court for taking the dog simply because he's a massive jerk. I can absolutely see that happening. I know for me, my first option is always just having an honest conversation where it's look, we're not happy with each other. It's better this way that we break up and move in different directions, but I want to take this dog. You don't even like it. Here's the papers where you can sign over the dog to me and we can just move forward and there's no problems. I wonder if there's some kind of legwork you can do on your end where all he has to do is sign over the dog and then you're done and that's it. Or something like that, because obviously this dog means a lot to you and you don't want to just give him up. But regardless, I hope this all works out for you, especially for the sake of that dog, because this is a messy situation and you definitely do not deserve this. My roommate keeps bringing guests over who basically live here and are using everything in the house, including my groceries. But now I'm honestly at a point where I cannot afford this any longer, and I seriously don't know how to address it because my roommate refuses to listen. Here's what's going on. I want to start off by saying that I don't know when having friends over quietly turned into housing unpaid roommates, but honestly, that's where we're at right now. My roommate started having her boyfriend and friends over a lot a few months ago. At first, it was fine. A night here, a weekend there, whatever. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be dramatic or controlling, but over time, it stopped feeling occasional and started feeling constant. They're here all the time now. They're cooking meals, they're taking long showers, they're doing laundry, charging devices, hanging out in the living room like it's their place. I'll go make food and realize that half the groceries I bought are completely gone. The trash fills up twice as fast, utilities keep creeping up, and somehow I'm the only one restocking toilet paper and paper towels. What makes it worse is that none of this gets acknowledged. There's no offer to chip in, no thing where they're saying, hey, thanks for letting them stay so much. Just an unspoken assumption that shared space means unlimited access for whoever she invites. When I finally brought it up gently, she brushed it off and said it's not a big deal and that it all evens out, but it doesn't. I'm already trying to be careful with money. Rent is high, bills are fluctuating, and I'm actively trying to keep my finances stable and rebuild my credit. I'm also watching costs go up because people who don't live here are just literally using everything, and it's so incredibly frustrating. I don't want to be the bad guy or police who comes over, but I also don't think it's unreasonable to expect shared resources to be respected. So at what point does having guests cross into unfair territory? And how do you bring this up without turning the apartment into a hostile place? I'm honestly starting to feel like I'm paying extra just to host people I didn't invite, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, I am right there with the original poster, like I don't care who you bring over, but for me, here's where the hard line is. If they stay over for more than a week, or if they start eating all of my stuff, then we're gonna have problems. Like, dude, at that point, you're not only gonna start paying rent, but you're also absolutely gonna be reimbursing me for my groceries. Like, are you kidding me right now? There's no way I would ever put up with that. And this isn't even mentioning the utilities increasing. Like, these people must be over all the time. Like, what is going on right now? So yeah, this is a big deal, and your roommate is absolutely being selfish. There's no excuse for this kind of behavior. They're ignoring your concerns and putting you in a weird position. So yeah, this is completely reasonable to be pissed off about this, and honestly, I would be livid if I had to pay more for people I didn't even want there. And the fact that your roommate's not listening to you is incredibly toxic. An entitled Karen desperately tries to get me in trouble by making the false claim that I was trying to shoplift from the store. And even though I proved this lady wrong multiple times, she simply refused to take no for an answer, deciding instead to follow me around the store and try to prove to everybody that I was some kind of thief. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I had a light bulb that blew out in my home, and the inside of the light bulb looked black and smoky. So I unscrewed it and I brought it with me to the hardware store. And I did that because that's generally the best way to get the correct replacement for the light. In the area where the shopping cart's undercover before you actually enter the store, I pulled it out of my purse and I set my purse in the cart. And then with the light bulb in my right hand, while pushing the cart by leaning on it with my forearms, I started slowly making my way through the store, figuring that I would see what fall decorations they had out, and if there was any random home decor or cleaning supplies, or some end-of-year barbecue sales items that I couldn't live without. After a while, I noticed a guy following me and trying to act all casual, and I really don't know why, but I'm pretty sure he was loss prevention. So, being the upfront person that I am, I flat out ask him, "Are you loss prevention?" And when I said that, he stammers and then admits it and says that someone saw me shoplifting and putting something in my purse. Now, I am bemused more than anything else, so I point to my open bag and I told him, "You can check, I don't care." And he sheepishly peeks inside and then says something like, "Okay, you're good, sorry about that." And at this point, I can't help but ask myself. So I say to him, "What exactly did I steal?" He then says, "That lady down there." And he nodded towards the end of the aisle where an entitled Karen was parked staring at us. And that's when he explains that she said that she saw me open up a box and put a light bulb in my purse. Now, I couldn't really think of anything to say, so I just held out my burned out bulb and I said, "I haven't even gotten over to look at the bulbs yet. I was shopping around here first. I brought this to make sure I got the right one." The loss prevention guy then rolls his eyes and said something like, "Oh, I get it. Do you need me to get anyone to help you find the product that you're looking for?" But I just responded by saying no, and I continued shopping from there. Well, this entitled Karen seemed to be very irritated that I wasn't arrested, or at least forced to dump out my bag, so she actually followed me around the store. Now, with the loss prevention guy, he was at least trying to be subtle, but this entitled Karen was not. She kept about 2 shopping cart lengths back and just stared at me, and I honestly just did the best that I could to ignore her. I would pick things up, read the packaging, and then put it back, and then she would pick it up after I moved on and inspect it, as if she would discover an empty box or something like that. Now, I was irritated, but I tracked down the bulb that I needed. I made a point of holding out my smoky and obviously burnt out light bulb right next to the fresh clean bulbs until I found what I wanted. But then I put that one back and I chose out the same light bulb but a different brand for slightly cheaper. I then went to check out, and while I waited in line, I saw her at customer service pointing at me urgently. So eventually someone came over and asked how my shopping went. So I just held up my open bag and I made a point of showing that it was completely empty since I had to pull my wallet out to pay. I stood like that, not saying anything, until the employee apologized and left. And you know what the worst part about this is? At the end of the day, I didn't even see this entitled Karen actually shopping in the first place, because clearly she thought I was a thief despite the fact that I definitely wasn't. Wow, talk about a busybody. This lady literally followed you around the store, all under this weird assumption that you were trying to, like, I don't know, rob the place or something like that. And I really find people who act this way to be so obnoxious and so unbearable to be around. Instead of just minding running her own business, she's like literally going out of her way to try and get other people in trouble for stuff they didn't even do. But you know what? I love the way the original poster handled this, because they showed how stupid this lady truly was. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not disclosing the fact that I'm adopted to my fiance's family? Because right now, they feel very betrayed. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I was adopted as an infant. And this is a fact that I always knew. My parents never hid this from me or made it something shameful, but I also never like to talk about it with others. It normally opens up a lot of questions about my biological parents, or my real parents as someone would call them, or some people start talking about my parents like they're not really my parents. I had it happen when I was a lot younger and started school and told people my special story. So after we moved when I was 8 years old, I stopped talking about it and acted towards others like my parents are my biological parents. Now, I told my fiance when we first started dating, but apart from her and some very close friends, I never talk about it with anybody. To me, it's not something that anyone else needs to know about, and this includes my fiance's family. Well, as luck would have it, my adopted status was revealed to my fiance's family during a recent visit of theirs. I then got a knock on the door from a private investigator who informed me that my biological parents were interested in contact with me, and they overheard the conversation. They then had a lot of questions, but primarily they were angry at me for two reasons. For starters, and most importantly for this post, because I just didn't tell them. They didn't like being kept in the dark, and didn't like my fiance's response that it wasn't any of their business. Secondly, they were also mad because I expressed to the PI that I was not interested in any contact with them and asked him to pass this on to my biological parents. My fiance's family had the very reaction I try to avoid from people, and they asked how I could turn down the chance to know my real family. But the primary criticism is that I did not tell them, and that I let them find out in the way that they did. They said they could have had grandkids affected by this, and I just wouldn't tell them. My fiance reminded them that it was none of their business, and she had them leave early when they refused to let the topic go. But her parents are still pissed off at me, and it's making me question if I'm seriously the one at fault. What should I do? Okay, this is seriously insane because your fiance's family is so intrusive. First of all, that PI should not have knocked on your door to give you that information. Like, an email really would have been enough for this, so the timing for everything is just awful and just completely unfair. But also, your fiance's family is completely out of line. There is no reason in the world they should ever know this information. This is quite literally none of their business, and for them to selfishly assume that this somehow affects them is just insane. And by the way, this would not affect any future grandkids. Like, this is not even a problem to begin with. Like, what is wrong with these people? So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way your extended family was acting is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's wedding after she disrespected my late wife and also demanded a family heirloom that was given to my late wife? Because right now, I really do feel disrespected, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female, and I lost my wife 2 years ago in a drunk driving accident. Losing her shattered my world, and I've been trying to pick up the pieces ever since. My family, though, has never really understood what I've been going through, and to be completely honest, they never fully accepted my marriage in the first place. And for the sake of the story, we'll call my late wife Lauren. When we got married, my grandma gave me a necklace that's been passed down in our family for generations. It's a tradition that the women in the family get it when they get married, and it meant the world to me because it felt like one of the few times that my marriage to Lauren was actually recognized as real. Since Lauren passed, my sister Emma, who's always been the golden child, has been eyeing the necklace. She's getting married soon, and she recently mentioned that now that I'm not really married anymore, I should pass it on to her. Now, that was hard to hear, but what really broke me happened last week at a family dinner. We were talking about her wedding, and she made a joke about setting me up with one of her fiance's friends. I felt uncomfortable, but I tried to brush it off. She then says to me, "Well, at least Lauren won't be there to haunt you if you hook up with someone." And I seriously couldn't believe that she said that. I didn't even know how to react. I just sat there. Later, when I told her how hurtful it was, she rolled her eyes at me and told me that I was being too sensitive and that I needed to stop being so depressing and lighten up. Then she brought up one of her bridesmaids who had a crush on me even when Lauren was alive and suggested that I have some fun with her at the wedding, if you know what I mean, as if my wife hadn't mattered at all. I told her there was no way I could come to the wedding if that's how she feels about Lauren and my grief. Things escalated from there, and she then accused me of being dramatic and said I was ruining her big day over one little joke. Well, my parents took her side, saying that I should just let it go and show up to support my sister. They even mentioned again how I should give Emma the family necklace, saying that since I'm not using it anymore, it should go go to her now. Ever since then, I've been bombarded with calls from literally everybody. They've all told me that I'm being selfish and that I need to move on and stop holding on to the past. My sister's fiance even said that I should be grateful my family didn't disown me when I came out, as if I owe them something for barely tolerating me. Now I'm questioning everything. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting to go to her wedding after all this? Part of me wonders if I should just suck it up and go, but another part of me can't believe how little my family seems to care about Lauren or me for that matter. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your family is so disrespectful to your wife's memory, it's not even funny. Are they really trying to say, oh yeah, you just need to let it go. You need to move on and stop holding on to the past. By the way, give me that family heirloom back. You're not gonna need it. Like, what is happening right now? This doesn't sound like family. This sounds like a bunch of bullies trying to push you around. They not only basically spit on the memory of your wife, but they also try to make it sound like you're the one with a problem, when in reality, your sister has just been so disrespectful. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for not wanting to go to the wedding or even wanting to give back that family heirloom. Because if this is how you're going to be treated, then I don't blame you in the slightest for not wanting to be involved. Am I the jerk for not doing a favor for my dad simply because of the way he's treating me and my siblings? Here's what happened. Okay, so after our mom passed away, my dad told me and my 3 other siblings that he was glad that part of his life was over and he was going to find someone he actually loved and wanted to be with, and we better be ready because he wasn't slowing down for us. And this was 10 years ago. He met a few women before his wife of 9 years. They were together a few months before they got married, and she was pregnant right away. My dad said he knew that she was the one, and he was finally in love, and also that mom was his biggest regret in life. Well, this would make my sister cry, which would annoy my dad, and he would say that we should want him to be happy when he sacrificed his own happiness for us. Now, here's the thing. He's a better dad to the kids he has with his wife. He's there on their birthdays, remembers to buy them gifts, takes them out for ice cream, or for some kind of special time with him. He comes home early to spend time with them before they go to bed and helps them with their homework. And he never did that with us, even after he started changing. My siblings really wanted him for the longest time, but I always knew he was an awful parent and that he wasn't going to change towards us. We also always fought, and he told me the 3 of us were born selfish, that we wanted him to be unhappy for our sakes. I told him he basically dumped his issues onto 3 grieving kids and didn't care in the slightest what that did to us. I reminded him that my brother was only 4 years old when he lost mom, and my dad's response was to say that if I cared so much about them, then I should care even more about my younger half-siblings. But I told him that I didn't, and I have told him that a few times ever since my first half-sibling was born. In truth, I never spend any time with my half-siblings or engage with them. It's just me, my brother, and my sister, and I put my time and love into them. My siblings have reached out to dad and asked for him to love them and spend time with them, but his focus is on the family that he wants, which is his favorite family as I think of them, and I definitely don't think of them as mine. Dad's wife and one of his favorite kids had birthdays a day apart. His gift for one was delayed or late or whatever, and he wasn't going to pick both of them up on time. So he asked me to do him a favor and pick one gift up while he picked up the other, and I just said no. But he told me that I could do a favor for him since he's my dad and all this other stuff. But again, I said no. The day came and went and I didn't get it, and he freaked out and told me that I was going to ruin the birthday. He told me again that I could have done a favor for him as we're all family, but I told him I don't owe him or his wife or his favorite kids any favors. I reminded him that he owed his kids being a good dad, and he wasn't to 3 of us, so I'm not going to save his butt or do something that makes his favorite family happy, because innocent or not, they are not my problem. Well, he said that I'm such a child, and then he got my uncle to say how disappointed he was that I acted so petty. So with all things considered, am I the jerk for not doing a favor for my dad? Because right now, I'm still very angry. No, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, because it sounds like your dad has basically walked out on his original family. Him saying that his wife was like the biggest mistake he's ever made in his life is not only incredibly gross, but also a horrible thing to say, especially in front of your kids. Like, what is wrong with him? And then for him to basically get like a do-over family and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do things right this time, where he actually like shows up for these kids and like shows them love and attention that you should have gotten. Like, that is awful and so inappropriate. And I know if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want to do any favors for my dad. He basically said he doesn't love me as much as his new family, and that is so insulting. Like, that's an awful thing to say. That would make me feel like garbage. Like, what is going on? So honestly, I think you would agree in saying that your dad is an absolute jerk for the way he's acting, because you and your siblings do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my best friend's fiance propose at my wedding? Because right now, after I said no, they're acting like I ruined their special day, despite the fact that it was my wedding and I didn't want them doing doing that. Here's what happened. Okay, so I got married last month to the love of my life, and everything went off without a hitch except for one awkward moment. A week before the wedding, my best friend, who we will call Mary, asked if her fiance, who we will call Josh, could propose to her at my reception. Apparently, Josh thought it would be romantic and was convinced that it would make their moment more special. Now, I love Mary, but the idea of having my wedding overshadowed by their proposal just didn't sit right with me. I politely said no and suggested that they have their own special day. Mary seemed a little disappointed, but she said that she understood. Well, on the day of the wedding, I noticed that Mary and Josh were acting very distant, and it was clear that something was off. I later found out that Josh was upset with me for ruining his plan and felt like I'd been selfish for not allowing them to share in the love for the day. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to let them have their proposal at my wedding? Or was I being selfish by not letting them make it a double celebration? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Never in a million years is it okay to propose at someone else's wedding. That is not only rude and inconsiderate, but it's also completely taking away from the real reason we're all there. And that would be to celebrate the marriage that's happening right now. That is such a selfish thing to do, and it's so unbelievably toxic for them to be like, wow, you ruined our plan. And it's like, man, I'm really glad they asked ahead of time because clearly they were gonna do it no matter what. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think it's awful that they even wanted to plan that in the first place. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she wants to give people second chances, then she should put her own neck on the line for once to see the consequences? Because right now, after being burned so many times by my sister's friends, I'm honestly sick of it, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister, who we will call Zoe, is nice to a fault. She gives others second chances, but she is too trusting with people that she gives second chances to, and it winds up having consequences for whichever family member Zoe convinces to stick their neck out for. For example, my grandparents were talking about needing a cleaner, and Zoe asked them to hire a friend who we will call Ash. After several months, my grandparents learned that Ash had been pocketing my grandma's jewelry, and Zoe had recommended Ash's cleaning services for our grandparents' friends as well, and now we suspect that she's stolen from them too. Zoe made an excuse that Ash was a good person, but that she had a bad home life and only took the jewelry because she's trying to get away from her parents. Well, my grandparents were not amused and said that Ash was lucky because that was the only reason they didn't report her. Later, Zoe recommended a friend by the name of Lily as a babysitter for our brother's son, who we will call Max. Now, according to Max, Lily was on her phone the entire time, and Max was on his own for dinner. Max claims that Lily was actually mean to him, and my nephew isn't the type to make something up like that. Well, Zoe made another excuse that Lily's boyfriend broke up with her, and she is a good person, but she's just having a hard time. And obviously, my brother was still very pissed off at Zoe for even recommending this friend. Zoe kept trying to push me to talk to him and agree that she was right, but eventually I got fed up. I told Zoe that I get how she likes to give people second chances, but no one she recommends is ever trustworthy, and she should try putting her own neck on the line so she'll get why we're so annoyed with taking the consequences of her kindness and then her coming and trying to make us agree that she did a good thing. After that, our parents reached out to me. They said they understood me and my brother being frustrated and that they would talk to Zoe about being naive, but she was trying to do a good deed, and I should apologize to her because no matter the circumstance, it is a crummy thing to put down a person who had the best intentions. Now, one could argue that this is none of our parents' business, as we are all adults now, but our parents typically stay out of our business, and this is one of the only times our parents have gotten involved in any of our disagreements. So now, I'm torn between if I should apologize or if I should hold my ground. What should I do? No, I don't think you're at fault here, and in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with you standing your ground. Your sister has bad judgment. There's no other way to look at this, and it's honestly really insulting, especially when she's pushing you to talk to your brother and be like, can you convince him that I'm right? Because clearly she's not. She had one friend steal from your grandparents, and another friend mistreat the kid they were supposed to watch. Zoe is literally batting zero at this point, and I don't blame you for getting upset. So no, I don't think you would be the jerk for standing your ground, because this seriously has got to stop. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit my sister's kids after she said that my career isn't real work? Because right now I'm very upset and I don't know what to do. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I work from home as a freelance graphic designer. It's a very flexible job, and I can manage my own hours, but that doesn't mean that I'm not busy or hard at work. My 35-year-old sister has 3 kids, all under the age of 7, and is constantly asking me to babysit. At first, I didn't mind helping out occasionally, but lately it feels like she's taking advantage of me just because I'm at home. A few weeks ago, we were at a family dinner, and my sister made a comment about how I don't have a real job, and that I'm basically just playing around on my computer all day. I was pretty offended, but I didn't want to make a scene, so I just laughed it off. And then the next week, she asked me to watch her kids again because she had something coming up, but I told her that I couldn't do that because I had some deadlines that I needed to meet. Well, she just got upset and said to me, "You're home all day. What could be so important? It's not like you're doing real work." And that was honestly the last straw for me. I told her that if she didn't think my job was real, then she could find someone else to babysit and I wouldn't be helping her anymore. Well, now she's furious and says that I'm punishing her and the kids over a harmless comment. My mom has been telling me to just let it go because according to her, family helps each other out, but I'm honestly still pissed off. So am I the jerk for refusing to babysit after my sister's disrespectful comments? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk and your sister is 100% at fault. For starters, being a freelance graphic designer and doing that as your main employment is not easy. That is insanely hard and it takes a lot of hustling to get that going. So for your sister to be like, "Oh, you're not actually working. What could be so important in your life?" Like that is so uncalled for and so disgusting. Not to mention the fact that she then turned around and was like, "Oh, by the way, watch my kids." And it's like, no, what are you doing? You can't just make those kind of comments towards somebody and then expect them to bend over backwards to make sure your life is more comfortable. She's literally sitting there and being like, "Oh, you don't have a real job. You're not doing something that's productive. You're just on the computer playing around." And it's like, wait a second, what is a real job? If I'm making money and I'm providing for myself, then guess what? That's a real job. The guy has a flexible job with flexible hours, and he can literally decide when he does and doesn't want to work. And I don't know about you, but that sounds like a dream. Why would someone not want to have that? And I guarantee you that the original poster probably works harder than their sister or anybody else in the family because he doesn't have a guaranteed paycheck at the end of the day. He has to hustle every single day just to make ends meet. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And I think anything your mom has to say about family helping each other out, in my opinion, is just such a dumb point. Because if your sister really was your family, then she wouldn't be making these harmful comments in the first place. My entitled neighbors blame my parents for the scratch that they made on their own car, claiming that if we didn't ask them to move it out of our driveway, they wouldn't have scratched it in the first place. Here's what happened. So at my parents' previous house, they shared a driveway with the neighbors. The driveway was very narrow, and a car could barely drive between the houses. And then the driveway became wider into two garages for both houses. For 25 years, previous neighbors had no issues, especially as they mostly used their garages for storage rather than cars. But when new neighbors moved in, that's when trouble began. The neighbor's wife would always park in the driveway, making it hard to walk or get bikes through, and my parents, trying to be nice, just ignored it. Then their son got a car, and they started parking two cars in the driveway, taking up the entire space of the driveway. Finally, after a year or so, my parents cleared out their garage and told the neighbors they couldn't block the driveway anymore. The neighbors agreed but continued parking there, insisting my parents just knock to ask them to move. Well, this led to my parents having to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, sometimes on the weekends, or even wait 10 to 20 minutes for them to move the cars, as they were either out walking the dog or they just didn't hear us. And this was really frustrating for both parties. After months of this, the neighbors cleared their own garage, but while trying to park, the wife scratched the entire side of her car. She then screamed at my mom and blamed my parents as they had forced her to park in the garage and demanded that they pay for the damage. Well, my mom, being fed up, yelled back, saying it was a shared driveway and they never had any issues with previous neighbors. And then she just shut the door in her face. And the best part about it is that they never brought it up again. So maybe they realized how ridiculous it was, but they never said hi or spoke to my parents for the entire year before my parents moved out. But at least they finally stopped parking in the driveway because their attitude about the entire scenario was just completely out of control. Yeah, these people were being super entitled. Like, how selfish do you have to be to act like that? They really took up the entire driveway and then was like, "Oh, if you want me to move our car, then just ask us." But it's like, no, buddy, get your car out of my side of the driveway. I should not have to ask you to move your car. Like, what is going on right now? Like, if someone did that to me, I would be half tempted just to tow their car because that's such a selfish thing to do. Not to mention the fact that they tried to be like, "Oh yeah, you scratched my car. This is your fault." And it's like, are you kidding me? We haven't even parked our car in the driveway. You literally scratched your car on your own. So truly, I'm glad your parents got to move away from them because their attitude was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk walks into me on my wheelchair claiming that I was going too fast and that I need to slow down and watch where I'm going. And despite the fact that my wheelchair was literally parked and this guy walked into me because he was staring at his phone too much, I snapped at this guy in a way that I don't think he'll ever forget. Here's what happened. Okay, let me start off by saying that I am a wheelchair user. An accident in 2016 left me with a progressive disability, and last year I graduated to a tricked-out power chair as a consolation prize. Now, my chair is extremely noticeable if you are paying attention. Not only is it larger than life, but I have a 4-foot flexible pole on the back of it with a multicolored pinwheel on top, a pink fairy, a rainbow pride flag, and a bright yellow tag to let people know that I'm visually impaired. And there are literally rainbow butterfly wings on the back of my seat, so I am impossible to miss. So there I am at my local grocery store, bopping along and just doing my own thing. I mean, independence feels great. I finished my shop and I meandered outside, and just as I got outside, a group was going in, so I stopped to let them pass. And one would think this is all good, right? Well, not so much. I should mention I was also very much brightly colored, wearing pink short pants and a bright yellow t-shirt, with rainbow striped Pride sneakers on my feet, and a rainbow tie-dye bucket hat. So you probably get the point. I'm hard to miss, right? But oh my friend, I assumed way too much. There I am, quietly waiting for the group to go into the store, and along comes some jerk staring at his phone. There were people in front of me, on my left and behind me, because it was a busy shopping day. I had nowhere to move to without running over a very unhappy pedestrian. I watched this guy booking it into the store, his face intently staring at a screen, and then bam, he runs right into my legs and the side of my chair. Now, these power chairs are heavy. Mine is a new model with lithium batteries, and it still weighs 250 pounds without me in it. And the dude slammed so hard, he moved me sideways with my brakes locked. This idiot glanced up from his screen long enough to glare at me and say, "Slow down." And as we're Canadian, he didn't even give me an excuse me or sorry. So at that point, I was pissed. I said to him, "Excuse you, jerk. I was stopped. You plowed right into me." I then fixed on him with a patented Canadian glare of disapproval. Well, the guy gave me another glare, looked around, and then mumbled. And then he eventually huffed off. And I will say, I'm normally a pretty chill guy, but when entitled jerks walk along with the manners of a toddler and do something like that, it really pisses me off. Yeah, that is insane that guy would be like, "Wow, you need to slow down," when he couldn't have been more obviously staring at his phone instead of looking forward. And this is 100% his fault, by the way. The original poster was parked in their scooter. They couldn't go anywhere, and they weren't even moving. So for this guy to be like, "Wow, slow down," that's clearly him projecting because he's the one that needs to slow down and look up from his stupid phone once in a while, because the way he reacted was completely unacceptable. I found out that my girlfriend cheated on me a year ago, but my legal status in the United States depends on us staying together, and I'm now at such a crossroads that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I met my girlfriend over a year ago while I was on a J1 visa in the United States. I met her only 9 days after arriving, so we basically spent my entire 3 months there together. We fell in love pretty fast and had an amazing time. We knew I had to go home at the end of the 3 months, but we had many deep conversations about us and what we wanted, and decided we would give being in a long-distance relationship a shot. I left the States, and about 4 weeks later, she came to visit me in my home country. It was like a movie, showing her the small town I grew up in and all the places I went to as a kid. We even did a little trip to some close-by countries. We both had a very convenient work situation where we could both be remote, so every 6 weeks, one of us would go visit the other one for a month. On the days we were apart, we would FaceTime every single day, and we never missed a day. And talking to her was so easy. It got to a stage where we realized that going back and forth isn't sustainable, so we looked into moving to the same country together. She happens to be a European citizen through her dad, so it made sense for her to at least try to move to my country for a bit and try to work remotely. We had a great time, but realized pretty quickly that the lifestyle in my country wasn't really suited to us, including the life that we want, plus the job market is complete trash. So we decided that because everything about the relationship was perfect, we would get legally married so that I could live with her in the States. It made more sense, even for things outside of the relationship. Like, for example, I have a STEM degree that would pay extremely well in the city that she's from, and it's hard for me to get STEM jobs in my hometown. She also has a very close relationship with her family, and while I'm on good terms with mine, it's definitely not as close as hers. Anyways, I'm extremely excited for this new life in the United States. I have a lot of friends in her city from living there, and I have potential to make a serious amount of money. I came to the United States, we got legally married, and while I'm waiting for my green card, I was able to get my EAD work permit, which allowed me to secure my dream job in this dream city, which is paying me about 3 times more than any job I've ever had in my life. And I started this job yesterday. Anyways, around the time of the anniversary of us deciding to be exclusive, she started acting weird when I was talking about saying that it was a happy day and we should mark the occasion. She didn't respond to my text messages about it and avoided conversations when I talked about it in person. She put it down to being so stressed out at work, and to be fair, she has a very stressful job, so I believed her, but I still had a weird feeling in my gut. So I said it again a few weeks later, saying that we should do something to mark the occasion now that work is less stressful, even if it's it's late now. But when I said that, she got weird about it again. So then I decided to have a snoop, which I'm not proud of and I know is frowned upon by many, but we have talked about it and gave each other a license to snoop around. And for the record, she snoops in my phone all the time. I don't really care. I've got nothing to hide. But for me, I've never snooped through her phone until now. Anyways, all I did was search the name of guys that she was seeing before me in her text messages, and I saw all that I needed to know. The next morning, I was in a terrible mood, and she could see this, so after her persistently asking why, I say that I saw something on her phone, and I need her to explain it to me honestly. Long story short, she had hooked up with this guy about a week after we had become exclusive. They went on a dinner date, went to a nightclub afterwards, and then went back to her apartment and spent some quality time together, if you know what I mean. And she just confessed all of this to me today. So now I'm heartbroken and I don't know what to do. We've had such a dream relationship and everything is great other than this. I also can't stay in this dream job in this really cool city if we break up. The situation in my home country is kind of bleak, and I'm so conflicted for these reasons. She also said that if I decide to leave her, she completely understands, but also doesn't want to wait around pretending to be with me until I get my green card. I know we were in our early days, and I understand long distance is very tough, but I think I've got the right to be upset if she spent some quality time with someone after we agreed to be exclusive. So right now I feel completely broken and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this is a devastating situation. Can you imagine going to another country for someone you thought you were in love with, only to then find out that yes, they have been cheating on you behind your back? And it doesn't matter if it happened early in the relationship or late in the relationship. Cheating is cheating and that is not okay. But to make it even worse, you finally have your dream job, you're working on getting your green card and everything's going well, and then this gets dropped on you like a ton of bricks. Like that has got to be so awful. Like I can't imagine being in that kind of situation because this really would like completely change my life. Like this really is completely unfair because you literally went to another country to start work, all for this lady that you thought you loved and like you wanted to be with. So hopefully there's some kind of like, I don't know, immigration lawyer that can help you through this process, who might have a good idea of like, okay, these are your options, this is what you can do. Because the way you got treated by this lady is absolutely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to have your life uprooted in this kind of way. An entitled old jerk tries to get up in my business by asking me why I was taking so much medication, causing me to snap at him in the pharmacy line in a way that this guy truly will never forget. Here's what happened. So I have a chronic health condition that is treatable, but it requires daily medication. I'm also a very tall and fit water polo player and aquatic marathoner, so I'm not someone who looks sick in any kind of way, which is why I think this whole situation happened in the first place. In my country, I'm able to get my medications for free for several months of supply at a time, so when I do go to the pharmacy, I usually have to fill my backpack up with several bottles of medication. Today I went and it was busy with a long line of all types of people. As I'm putting medication into my backpack, this weird old man at the window next to me starts to tap me on my shoulder and says, "What's all that medication for?" Now, I will admit, I was pretty shocked by this and just looked at him incredulously. I said to him, "I'm certainly not going to tell you." Well, he immediately responded sorry with a horrified look on his face. The pharmacist then very sternly told him that he can't ask other people those types of questions, and then she turned to me and apologized to me. I told her thank you, and then I walked out while everyone else in line was just kind of staring at me and this entitled old jerk. Now, I suppose he meant no harm by it, but like, why on earth would you ever think it's okay to ask a complete stranger about their medication or even their health conditions? I feel bad for snapping at him, but I was just so taken aback by his nosiness, and I was embarrassed when I realized everyone was staring. I just don't know why some people are like this, because this was absolutely unacceptable. Yeah, talk about bad manners. Why on earth would anybody in their right mind be like, "Hey, why do you have all that medication?" It's like, dude, that is none of your business. Like, seriously, stay out of it. Like, the pharmacist was right. You can't just ask people that question. Not just because you need to mind your own business, but it could also be like a really sensitive situation. So yeah, I don't blame you for snapping at that guy, because if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. My former boss said that he wouldn't be able to pay me in 90 days simply because his business was falling apart. So I decided to find a new job immediately, forcing him to find a replacement despite him begging me to please stick around. Here's what happened. So my former boss didn't realize that to actually make money, he had to show up for work. Instead, he came and went as he pleased and expected me to pick up the slack and essentially try to play the role of receptionist, paralegal, office manager, and attorney. And for the record, I never gave legal advice. He just expected me to, and so did his clients. His friend was my divorce attorney and worked in the same building, so he would pop in to just chat and see how things were going. But even he started noticing that my boss was absent more than not and questioned how things were going. I started confiding in him that I was really concerned because I could see my former boss shelling out more than he was making, and his clients were less than pleased at never being able to speak with their attorney. Then my former boss started doing some unethical and shady things things to move cases along, and I started getting really nervous about what would happen if the former boss got caught and what that would mean for me. I told my attorney and former boss's friend all of this, and he said that his own firm needed extra support staff, but he didn't want it to appear like he was poaching me from his friend on purpose, and that I had to talk with the former boss about the state of the office and see if there was a way to salvage things. Well, I never really got that chance because later that day, my former boss stormed into the office and told me that I needed to start looking for a new job and to just take the first offer I get because he was probably going to have to shut the doors in the next 90 days and he couldn't guarantee me a paycheck. I spoke with my attorney the next day about it, and he shrugged and said for me to just give my 2 weeks notice and call it a day. Later that same day, my former boss came into the office and told me to hold off on finding a new job and to give him a month to try and turn things around. But I'm just thinking to myself, sorry, but I've got bills to pay, so I'm not going to sit idly and wonder if I'm going to be seeing another paycheck or not. I drafted my 2 weeks notice only because my attorney wanted this from me as a professional courtesy to his friend, and then I gave it to my former boss at the end of the pay period. Well, this is when my former boss gave me a weird look. He said to me, "You're leaving, but why?" So I responded by saying, well, per our conversation, you advised me to find other employment, so I did. He asked me where I was going, and then I said the friend's law firm. He said to me, "Seriously? When I make this business work, I'm gonna want you back. Is that gonna be a problem?" I responded by saying, well, good luck with that. He then asked me what he's paying me, and I said to him, less than you in half the hours, but at least I know his checks won't bounce. I heard from my replacement on his first solo day as I trained him during my last week that my former boss regretted telling me on a whim to leave because I was the only one who knew anything about his cases, which, you know what? It sucks to suck. He should not have left me to run his firm without any help, knowing that I'm not an attorney or a licensed paralegal, just so he could go on lavish vacations and ignore all of his clients. Even if my former boss wanted me to come back, I've already been bumped to full-time hours and gotten a raise in less than a month, and there's a promise of a second raise very soon to put me at what I was making at my former boss's place, but here I get paid holidays, PTO, and some sick leave. So basically, there's no way on God's green earth I would ever go back to my former boss even if he begged me. Yeah, talk about a bad business decision. The second someone's like, oh yeah, I can't pay you, it's time to find another job, and then they try to double back and be like, psych, just kidding, don't get a new job. Like, I would have already had a new job lined up right then and there. No one's gonna mess with my paycheck, and no one is gonna make it so I can't make ends meet. Especially if I'm the one putting in all the hard work, like that would make me go insane. There's no way that's gonna happen. So if I was in the original poster's shoes, I absolutely would have done the same thing. I would have gone to this guy's competition and been like, okay, it's less pay and it's less hours, but you know what? It's better than not getting paid. Because what this boss did was completely inappropriate, and I do not blame you for moving on in the slightest. My husband and I were planning on getting divorced, but my husband ended up cheating on me before we could make that happen. And after my sister-in-law put my husband on blast and basically made all of this public, I'm now struggling with the results of this situation, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been together for 17 years and married for 10. We have 2 daughters, ages 14 and 16, and I got pregnant very early in the relationship, but me and my husband decided to make it work. We were happy for a while, obviously had another daughter, and eventually decided to make it official, and we were very happy for a time. We've been drifting apart for years. We've never been a couple prone to arguing or fighting. We are both avoiders, but a year or so ago, I realized we were avoiding each other more and more. We've both had mental health struggles, and just managing our daily responsibilities took so much out of us that we didn't have anything left for each other. When we did talk, it was mostly about logistics and the kids. We finally had the divorce talk about 10 months ago, and we both agreed it was probably the right thing to do, but neither of us was enthusiastic to uproot our whole lives, deal with the financial side of things, or face breaking it to the kids. We talked about whether maybe we can still make it work and fall back in love, whether we should consider marital counseling or something. Things were left very open-ended. Then, a week later, my father passed away. We both embraced that as an excuse and agreed to revisit the issue later, but never did. Now, the last year has been rough. I've been mourning my dad and always had the future of our marriage in the back of my mind, but we've pretty much kept operating as if that conversation never happened. At this point, I'm still wondering if we can work things out, and I'm asking my friend for contact information for any kind of like marital counselors they might have. Well, to make a long story short, my sister-in-law spots him out and about with another woman and she loses her mind. She puts him on blast to her whole family, and it finally gets back to the kids. Now, I'm obviously not thrilled about it, but I'm also not going to act like it's the end of the world when our relationship had deteriorated to essentially us being roommates with shared children who hook up occasionally. He apologized and we agreed that clearly it's time to separate and that he's going to find some kind of apartment or something like that. And I'm having my own emotions about all of this, and it's honestly been rough. Well, as a result of all of this, the kids won't even speak to him. They're saying that once he moves out, they never want to see him again. And this is devastating for him and upsetting to me because he's a great dad and a good influence on them. The explanation that I've gone with for both his family and the kids is that the relationship has been essentially over and we've been holding off on divorce while I'm dealing with my dad's estate. But there was no big betrayal here. Most of his family accepted that, along with a reminder that we have kids to worry about, and the only concern in all of this is keeping it friendly and drama-free for their sake. But his sister and my kids have not. My older daughter keeps asking me if we agreed that it was okay to see other people, and I'm not willing to straight up lie to her, so I've just been going with, well, I'm not going to get into the details of everything, and repeating what I said previously, but she keeps parroting her aunt that if we didn't agree to see other people, then it is cheating. And at this point, I don't really know what to do here. I'm not going to lie and say I don't have some level of frustration towards my husband for jumping into another woman's bed without thinking about what it could do to the kids, or having the courtesy to let me know that things are definitely over. I'm worried about my kids picking up on that emotion from me when I'm trying to present a united front with my soon-to-be ex. I'm frustrated that I don't get to process all of this privately because my sister-in-law is a gossip and she likes to stir the pot. I can tell my girls feel incredibly hurt and betrayed, and I can't help but blame myself as well because clearly we should have put this marriage to rest a long time ago and saved us all this grief. How do I fix this moving forward? What should I do? Okay, honestly, I don't think there's anything you can do to fix this. Yes, it does sound like you two probably should have separated a while back, but there was way too much going on and your dad passed away, and that in and of itself can be crazy, and I completely understand that. But the person who crossed a line, like seriously, was your husband. And yes, the circumstance sucks, and your sister-in-law is a gossip and she's putting all this out in the public, but at the end of the day, she is right. Your husband cheated on you, like he straight up did that. No matter how you try to frame it, that is exactly what happened. And I'm honestly right there with you when you're like, okay, I want to process this privately. I don't want everybody knowing my business, and I don't want this out in the open like this. So truly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with all of this, and I'm so sorry that this is the route your husband decided to take. Because regardless of how your relationship really was going, this truly ended up being completely unfair for both you and your daughters. My entitled neighbors have parties on the weeknights until 3 o'clock in the morning, and after dealing with this all summer, as well as making several complaints to my HOA, I now feel like our life is falling apart because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a master planned HOA community, and we have a noise ordinance set in place stating that outside noise is supposed to stop at 10 o'clock p.m. And everyone else on my street respects this for the most part. The people behind me sometimes go a little late, but they are about 27 years old with 2 toddlers who are otherwise extremely respectful, so maybe going like 30 to 45 minutes over doesn't really bother me or anybody else. But the family in question though has massive parties. We're talking just their guest cars take up both sides of the entire street, plus both sides of the side street between my half of the street and theirs. Anytime you go outside, there's no less than 5 to 10 people on the front patio, and sometimes like another 10 to 15 people in the backyard, and at least another 10 inside of the house. And you can hear them inside because they leave the front door open. Every weekend during the summer, there's always about 40-something people at their house. The older teens will hang out around the cars, and they are loud, they're rude, and they're disrespectful. Plus, they throw their trash everywhere. One example of them being disrespectful and rude was when I was walking home with my mini pig. And yes, just for clarity, I am talking about the farm animal. She was leashed and following behind me, eating her snacks that I dropped for her, and I dropped some popcorn behind me to encourage her to follow along. Now, I understand different cultures have different beliefs around animals and all this other stuff, but these teenagers threw bottles at her when they saw her, screaming out that she startled them. Also, I should add that the HOA knows about my pig. She's registered with my city, and my property is in ordinance with the city guidelines for having a pet pig. Well, when they did that, I scolded them firmly, but never raising my voice at them, stating that what they just did was a very cruel thing to do. Well, one of the adults heard me and came running over, further startling my already scared pig, and proceeds to berate me for screaming at frightened children. During the summer, we only have to deal with their crazy parties during the weekend. However, the second football season starts, every night that there's a football game on, there is a party. It's driving me absolutely insane. I work from home, so for me personally, they aren't messing up any kind of sleep schedule or anything like that. But my 12-year-old obviously has a sleep schedule. He has to get up at 6:30 in the morning for school. When the neighbors are partying until 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 houses down, and it sounds like they're in my backyard, it severely affects him. I've sent in video proof of the noise with timestamps to the HOA, and I know several of my neighbors have as well. I've even contacted the security people that we have, and I've personally sent no less than 30 complaints, and nothing has changed. Last Sunday, things escalated even further, and I was once again walking my pig. Now, we do live in a desert, so it's way too hot to walk her during the day because she will literally split a hoof off, and then not be able to walk for days because of the pain, while the adults started yelling and hollering, making all kinds of unnerving animalistic types of squeals, which really freaked my pig out. So I had to risk her feet just to walk around the long way to our house so that we could avoid their house. I get that we both own our homes, and sometimes this is part of home ownership, but this feels so excessive and completely unnecessary. And right now I don't know what to do anymore. I also didn't take her for a walk last night because of Monday Night Football. She was so sad she didn't get to go for her walk, and she just sat at the gate and was whining. I take her for a walk every single night, and we don't cause any problems. She is no different than anyone else walking their dog on a leash. And now I feel like the house full of bullies is dictating what I do with my life and my pets because of their rude behavior. The HOA has been wonderful for all other complaints, approvals, or anything else that we have needed from them. So I don't understand why this issue is being completely disregarded. What should I do? First and foremost, I want to say that I've been in this situation before, and trust me, it really sucks. Having neighbors that are rude and obnoxious and incredibly loud at all hours of the night, it is never a fun experience, and it really does suck entirely. So to that end, I completely sympathize, and I know exactly where you're coming from. But in my opinion, I think you've done all the reasonable things that you can do. You've talked to your HOA, you've complained, you've shown proof that they're being way too loud. You've done everything you can except for one very specific thing that I would definitely do if I was in your shoes. Because if I lived 3 doors down from these people and I heard them making this much noise, I would 100% call the police and complain. There is no reason that you should have to put up with this. Their antics and their behavior is completely out of control. Because you know what? What you said goes both ways. Yes, they own a house, but so do you. And you signed up for this HOA just like they did. And they are supposed to keep the noise down after 10 o'clock. That is the rules of the neighborhood, and they need to do that. So truly, if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely call the police. Because this is not something that anyone should ever have to deal with.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
An entitled jerk runs into me on a walking path, all because he was running on the wrong side. He even went as far as claiming that I was the one at fault and that I needed to stop acting like this path was reserved just for me. Here's what happened. Okay, so where I'm from, it is customary to walk, run, or cycle on the right-hand side, just like the same way traffic flows on the road. So I was having my usual lunch break walk, as I do nearly every day, and I had a guy literally run into me. My route takes me past our local sports stadium, and like most stadiums, the forecourts are long and wide, leaving plenty of space for everyone to move around. The side furthest from the stadium is separated from the tram line by a long, straight hedgerow. So I was walking the length of the stadium with this hedgerow on my right-hand side, close enough that every now and then, the longer protruding branches lightly brushed my right hand. And I was doing this while looking up at the stadium and reminiscing about the nice times I have shared there with my wife. About 2/3 of the way along, there's a crossing point over the tram lines, and I can only assume that this is where he came from, as for the duration of my walk along the side of the stadium, there had been not one single person in sight. I figured this was because there must be a service vehicle coming from behind me, and I stopped to look over my shoulder, but there was nothing. There was nobody there. Only the wide open boulevard and not a soul in sight. I turned back to face the direction I was walking and put my arms slightly out to my sides, as if to say, what is going on, with a facial expression to match it. This guy literally ran into me and said, "You think this path is reserved just for you?" And he shouted this as making shoulder-to-shoulder contact, causing me to stumble. I stood there for a second trying to comprehend what had just happened, and I shouted back at him by saying, "You literally saw me walking there the whole time. There was no need for that." And he did not even look back, but just continued his jog. A few hundred meters further, and there is a bridge that goes over the motorway where the path becomes smaller, perhaps 4 to 5 meters wide, with barriers on both sides. Now I'm still sticking to the right, and a different jogger passes on my left, but decided to not move back to the right and just stay in the middle of the path. At this point, a cyclist is approaching, keeping to the right side, and starts to swerve, literally because the jogger has positioned himself in a way that the cyclist cannot pass without hitting him. And this jogger still doesn't move 1 centimeter from his line, forcing the cyclist to stop just to avoid contact. We catch each other's eyes and just shake our heads at each other in disdain, because we seriously could not believe that people could be this selfish. Yeah, that's insane to me, because seriously, all you have to do is sit on the right-hand side if you're on the path. And the fact that that guy ran into you and was like, "Oh yeah, you think this path belongs to you?" It's like, dude, no, of course it doesn't belong to me, but you're clearly on the wrong side. So yeah, if I was in that situation, I would be just as baffled, because that is seriously not that hard to follow. An entitled Karen gets up in my face after my medicine gets filled before hers at a pharmacy, forcing me to talk back to her in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to preface this by saying that I'm not one for confrontation, but when I am pushed to that point, I will will speak up, but it takes me a lot to get to that point. I went to the pharmacy in the morning just after opening, and this is something I tried to avoid due to it being the witching hour for entitled old people. But I had things to do later on, and I put it off to the point that I was out of my meds. There was one person in the waiting area, which was this old lady tapping her cane impatiently against a shopping cart. I got invited up to the window by the tech, told them my name and what I was there for, and she goes off to the med storage area to find it. Well, this entitled Karen didn't like that, I guess, because she came rushing up to the window with her cart and cane to yell. First she yelled at me, and then she yelled at the tech. She wanted to know why I was getting my meds before her, even though she was here before me. And every time she referred to me, she would hit me in the leg and the knee with her cane, and she was not doing this gently. Now, I didn't really have anywhere to escape, because this pharmacy's pickup window was really small. So I had a wall to my right, her to my left, the counter with a window in front of me, and this Karen literally parked her cart right against me. I couldn't even properly turn around to move the cart. The tech tried explaining that they were filling her script while mine has already been filled. I mean, mine had been shipped in, so they didn't even have to do anything other than put the order in and hand it to me. This Karen still wasn't happy with that answer and said that no one else should be getting their meds until she gets hers. Once again, moving to hit me in the leg. Now, at this point, I am pissed off. My leg was throbbing, the tech gave her a reasonable answer, and I just wanted to pay and get my meds. After she smacked me the 5th time with her cane, I told her in the best mom voice I have that if you hit me with that cane one more time, I will take it from your hands and put it so far up where the sun doesn't shine that you'll be tasting the rubber foot on it. She then muttered something about respect and all this other garbage, but I just told her that she needed to shut up, sit down, and wait for her meds. They are working on it. I also threw in that the world didn't stop for her problems, nor did it revolve around her. Well, as a result, she did sit down, and I'm not sure if it's because of what I said or because the tech offered to call the police for assault. I did consider it, but turned her down in the end because I didn't want to stick around any longer than I needed to. As I was packing my meds up into my bag, the pharmacist came out and told her they weren't going to fill her script now and that she needed to leave. So in the end, she didn't get her medications and was kicked out of the store. She gave me an awful glare as I was backing out of my parking spot, and to be completely honest, I thought she was going to rush out into the lot and claim that I hit her or something like that, because based on the way she acted in the pharmacy, I definitely would not put it past her. Okay, this is a fantastic story for so many reasons. For starters, I think the original poster absolutely met fire with fire. This Karen was literally smacking her in the leg and treating her so poorly for literally no reason. Like, she was up in this window screaming at everybody, all while literally assaulting the original poster. And so at that point, after getting boxed into a corner and then pushed around and hit repeatedly, like right then, that's when the gloves would be off. And the original poster handled this correctly. Like, I would not put up with that for a second because nobody should have to deal with that. But more importantly, in my opinion, is the way that the pharmacy themselves handled this. They didn't just fill the script and be like, okay, we'll get your medicine for you. They said, no, you're not getting your script filled and you need to leave. And that, in my opinion, is the only correct response in this scenario. You don't bend to this stupid Karen's whims and be like, oh yeah, we'll get your script, don't worry about it. Because that just shows that you have no spine and you will absolutely give in when someone pushes you hard enough. And it displays this awful pattern that yes, you're gonna let them get away with that. So the way the original poster and the pharmacy handled this was perfect in my opinion. Because when someone's talking to you like that and treating you like garbage, you have every right to defend yourself and not put up with that for a single minute. Would I be the jerk if I invite everyone from my husband's friend group to our wedding reception, except for one girl who we've always had problems with? Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been married to my husband for a year now, but we're finally having the reception in December of this year. My husband has a friend group since high school, and they all went to school together. Besides us, it consists of 5 couples and 3 single people, and the one girl that I'm gonna mention is the only single girl in the group. Let's call her Tiffany for the sake of the story. Tiffany dated one of the guys for 5 years before breaking up with him after she decided to cheat on him. He quickly moved on and started dating a younger coworker. They have been dating for 2 years now, and she was very bitter over the breakup and caused a stir in the friend group even though it was all her fault. So I'm considering not inviting her due to an incident that happened last year during Christmas. That year we all got gifts for each other. We hosted the Christmas event at our house and everyone came on time except for her. Not only was she late, she also didn't greet my husband and I, but she greeted everybody else. She also got everybody's gifts except for my husband and myself, citing that she only got gifts for the real couples. Now I brushed it off the first time, but she said it again twice. She then left early and everyone, including us, were confused as to why she acted like that. Most of the friend group sided with us, but a girl and a guy were defending her, claiming her social awkwardness and inability to read social cues were the reason why she acted the way that she did. But I felt like her words and her actions actions were so deliberate because there's no way that she would forget to give us a gift or to even greet us. She definitely knew better. It felt rude and on purpose. Even though half the group dislikes her, the other half is still fond of her and close to her. They hang out with her regularly, and we still hang out with them too, but without the girl in attendance. Tiffany also reacted poorly to the news of my pregnancy. She asked me if it was an accident, if we truly loved each other, and all this other stuff. And it was the strangest reaction I've ever had to my pregnancy. Now, for a bit of context, I dated my husband for 2 years before our engagement and our marriage. We have a baby, and we also have known each other for nearly 10 years, and we were close friends for most of that time before we started dating. I was not part of this friend group until we started dating, even though I also went to school with them. My husband also isn't close with her and has never really been that close. In fact, they've never really gotten along. She's really sweet to the other women in the group, but just not to me. We're the only married couple with a baby in the group, and everyone else is dating seriously, with no engagements on the horizon. Now, the reason I'm making this post is because I'm reading that it's rude to exclude one person out of a whole friend group to a wedding, and I'm just wondering if I'm in the wrong for this. My husband is supportive, and we both don't want to invite her, but honestly, this whole situation really sucks, and we don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, no, you would not be the jerk for excluding this lady from your wedding. She sounds like a piece of work, and she doesn't sound like a friend in the slightest. Like she's exclusively rude to you and your husband, and has pretty obviously made that known to pretty much everybody in the group. And any people trying to be like, oh yeah, her social awkwardness is the reason she can't do things right. She can't read social cues. She can't help it. Like, I would understand that if this was a child of some kind, but Tiffany in this story is 27 years old. That is more than enough time to understand social cues and at least have some semblance of what's going on. Like, I'm sorry, that is not a good enough excuse, if even an excuse in the first place. Because that's just a really convenient reason for someone to get away with being a jerk, which is exactly what Tiffany is. So in my opinion, I don't blame you for cutting her out of your wedding entirely, because her attitude about you and your husband have been completely toxic, and in my opinion, you should not have to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not allowing my friend to bring her emotional support animal to my house after it destroyed my furniture the last time they were here? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I have a close friend who we will call Amy, who has a small dog that she refers to as her emotional support animal. Now, I'm a huge animal lover, and I have no problem with pets in general, so when she asked if she could bring her dog over a few months ago for a small gathering, I was totally fine with it. However, during that visit, her dog completely destroyed one of my couch cushions by chewing it up, and also scratched the legs of my coffee table. Amy apologized, but she kind of brushed it off and said to me, he's still learning to behave in new environments. Now, I didn't push back too much because I knew the dog is important to her, but I also was pretty upset because it cost me quite a bit to replace the damaged items. Fast forward to now, and Amy asked if she could bring her dog to my place again for another get-together. But this time, I politely told her that I wasn't comfortable with the dog coming this time because of what happened last time, and I don't want any more of my furniture being ruined. Well, when I said that, Amy got really upset and said that I was being insensitive to her mental health needs. She insisted that she needs the dog with her at all times, and that I'm making her feel excluded by not allowing the dog. I suggested that she leave the dog at home for just a couple of hours, or that we meet somewhere else, but she said I'm being unreasonable. And now some of our mutual friends are saying that I should let the dog come just to keep the peace, but I don't think it's fair that I should risk some more damage to my home. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down in the way that I did? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. If someone's gonna be over at your house with their dog, then they need to be able to keep that dog under control, whether it's an emotional support dog or not. Like, seriously, the fact that Amy completely dismissed the fact that her dog destroyed your property and like completely ripped up your couch and your table, like that is so toxic and just so annoying. Like, why should you have to put up with that a second time when you could easily meet up somewhere else that wouldn't involve your property getting destroyed by her dog? It also blows my mind that Amy's trying to frame this as some kind of like mental health offense of some kind, as if you putting a boundary down for her out of control dog is somehow a shot at her mental health needs. Like, you did offer alternatives of you guys meeting up and having a get together. In fact, why not just have it at Amy's house? Like, the way Amy's acting, in my opinion, is so annoying and just super manipulative. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because clearly she has very little concern for you or your property. Am I the jerk for moving in with my grandparents and telling my mom that I'm done supporting her after she practically neglected me pretty much my entire childhood? Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my mom had me when I was 18 years old. My dad was just some guy that she hooked up with at college, and for years it was just the two of us. She didn't want to go back to her hometown so my grandparents could help us. She didn't even tell them about me for several years, and then used a 6-year-old me to break the news to them. Then, not only did she use me to break the news, but she had me ask them if we could stay there for a while, and she even coached me to do the puppy dog eyes and make it all good. And I did all of that because she asked me to and because I was 6. In fact, she had me lie about pretty much everything. When she wanted me to lie about my father, or when she wanted me to lie about where we'd lived before, I would do pretty much anything she would ask me to do. I followed her along eagerly for the most part when she was bouncing between guys and putting those relationships before me. I even shared a room with a random baby and a toddler when I was 8 years old because my mom's then boyfriend had only one extra room where his kids slept. I tried to speak up about wanting mom to focus more on me, and she figured out what I was going to say and gave me this guilt trip about needing to be put first, all because she had me so young and how she needed me to get on board. So I never tried again. Well, 4 years ago, she met her husband and dated him online when COVID kept everybody at home. They moved in together 3 years ago and got married 2 weeks after we moved in together. It was him, his 3 kids and mom, and then me. His kids spent some time with their mom, but they were with us a lot too. And I hated this honestly, but for my mom, I said nothing. She put more effort into his kids than she ever did to me, and it really stung a lot. They were younger, but so what? I was still her kid too. She treated me more like an older sister by burdening me with her issues and asking me for help with them. So I started spending more time with my grandparents and started to thrive. And then her husband's ex passed away, and my mom and her husband wanted to take in her other kids, which were different kids than the stepkids my mom already had, with my mom eventually telling me that they were adopting them all. Now at that point, I just sort of gave up, and I asked my grandparents if I could just live with them. There were some custody things still being worked out, so I was only living with those kids a couple of days. Well, my mom was shocked when I told her I wanted to stay with her parents, but she ended up letting me, thinking that this would be a temporary move. But she realized after more than a month that I'm serious. She has tried to get me to come and spend time with them and bond with the kids, and just to help out around the house, but I told her no. She said they'll be my official siblings in a year, and we need to give them a good life, but I still told her no again. They'll be her kids, and I won't be because she never treated me like hers. I told her that I don't want to give those kids a good life or to be their sister. I don't want to help her or her husband, and I don't want to put her first anymore. I told her that I'm done supporting her. My mom then started crying, and her husband cussed me out and accused me of cruelty and abandoning the family. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I think the way your mom is acting is completely selfish. She not only neglects you for a majority of your life, but then tries to turn around and be like, oh, come on, we gotta do this for the family. And it's like, what are you talking about? What family? You've done nothing to make me feel like I have a family, and if anything, you've turned your back on me entirely. Like, that's completely awful and so unfair for you. So no, I don't blame you for moving in with your grandparents, because the way your mom's been treating you is completely unfair. My crazy entitled mom is claiming that she's the rightful owner of my house, despite the fact that she and my dad have been renting from me. Things have gotten so bad that I'm now considering evicting them just to finally get her out of my house. Here's what happened. Okay, so I bought a small starter home during the housing market crash, and I did this completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and very easy to maintain. They have foreclosed in the past, so there's no way anyone would ever give them a mortgage. Also, my dad is retired and my mom just doesn't work. Now, they wanted to rent from me. For a discounted rent, they paid off the mortgage, let's say maybe $50,000, by tapping into a 6-figure inheritance that my parents got. So a lease was written up explaining that it was a prepayment of rent, and their rent would only be the taxes and insurance, and they would pay $350 a month, basically only going up when taxes and insurance go up. We signed the lease with all the other stuff involved and had it notarized, and that's how it's been for quite a while now. So to be clear, I'm not making a single dime on this house. I recently told them the rent would be going up by about $3, all because of a slight increase in the insurance, and my mom lost her mind when I said that. She is seriously claiming that I'm hungry for money and that she was going to rip out everything she did, namely the garden and other cosmetic changes to the house, and that I owe her, and I apparently can't evict her because it's her house. She says she's not responsible for the insurance even though our lease says otherwise, and that the insurance hasn't been raised in a decade, which is also completely untrue. She says that I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance, and that a court will show me that and give her my house. Now, we have a notarized lease. They are listed as tenants, and I'm the only one on the deed. My father then demanded the bills to see if I'm ripping them off, which, by the way, the house is a commutable distance from Manhattan, so a studio apartment around here would be over like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for a dog. I can easily get $2,000 for this house, even before they moved in. I send them copies of the taxes and insurance showing only their address, and it shows that I'm even charging them discounted taxes. So I told them to add it all together together and then divide by 12, and I told my mother go ahead and contact a lawyer so they can hopefully slap her straight. I guess my father agreed with me because now she is divorcing my father. Now, I've even told my dad that I will evict them, but my mom is dead set on a judge giving her the house while also trying to prove that I'm being money hungry and that apparently everybody's gonna see it. My husband said to print out rental listings in the area and slam it on the table and tell them to decide. They can either have $350 a month or they can try to rent for $2,000. The choice is theirs because honestly, right now, I seriously want these people out of my house. Wow, these people really do sound like a nightmare. First of all, you gave them the deal of a lifetime in a city that is already overpriced and overcrowded. Like seriously, it is so expensive in New York City, so the fact that they got a deal of what, $350 a month for a studio apartment that's close to Manhattan, like that is insane. Like I know people who live in New York City and they would do anything for something like that. So the fact that your parents are so completely obtuse to how lucky they are is honestly so insulting. Not only to you and how much money you could be making off this property, but also the countless other tenants who would be so grateful just to live there and pay out the nose just to be there in the first place. And it's honestly so crazy to me that your mom's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be my house. And it's like, what are you talking about? You're the only one on the deed. She has no claim over it. And it's so smart that you put this all in writing. Like, oh my God. Can you imagine having some kind of like word of mouth situation with her where you tell her, oh yeah, just pay $350 a month. And then she turns around and pulls something like this? Like, this is crazy. This is so overblown. It's not even funny. So truly, for the sake of you and your sanity, I really hope you get her out of your house sooner than later, because it sounds like your dad is slowly seeing the light and he's realizing that yes, his wife is crazy because her behavior is completely out of line and you do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for not wanting to wear slippers in my home just to reduce the noise so that my neighbors don't hear me in my own house? Because right now I am very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 33-year-old female and I bought a house with my husband in May of this year. It is a townhouse on the edge of our city, and we have neighbors on one side, but the house on the other side is currently empty. Our next door neighbors seem nice enough, but we've only ever talked to them either when we're picking up packages or when they come to complain about the noise. For context, the first weekend we had the house, we decided to have some friends over to build furniture on a Sunday, and then we tried again the next week on a Sunday. As we were building things, one of our neighbors came over to ask us not to do construction on Sunday, all because of the supposed legal quiet hours. But this is simply not true. We were building inside of our house, which is allowed on your own property on Sundays where we live. I was annoyed, but we decided that we would accommodate them and bake them cookies as an apology. Things seemed to be okay after that, but then a couple of months later on a Sunday, my husband was breaking ice cubes out of a tray, and he maybe banged it on the countertop 3 or 4 times. The next thing I know, our neighbor had run over and is now demanding that we not build anything on Sunday again. Now, I didn't say anything, but I was annoyed because since it wasn't even a minute before he came over, so not wanting to fight, we put up soundproofing in our living room just in case our TV is loud, and generally avoid making sound on Sundays now. It feels a bit like we're walking on eggshells in our own home. Then the other day, I was up trying to get some sleep around midnight, and their TV was blasting so loud that we could hear it in our bedroom. I've heard their TV and music through the walls before, but generally brush it off since it was during the day. This time, it was genuinely too late to be reasonable, and it actually was breaking the law regarding quiet hours. I talked with my husband, and we chose to wait to say anything until we saw them in passing. Well, today my husband picked up some packages from their place and mentioned the noise from the other night. He was told by our neighbor that the walls between our houses were very thin, and they are actually even annoyed by us walking around in our home, and their only recommended solution was for us to wear slippers all the time. Now, my husband thinks this is a good solution, but he already wears house slippers all the time, so it wouldn't be a big change for him. But I personally don't like wearing house slippers, and in my experience, they do very little to stop the sound of footsteps anyways, and I am hesitant to do so just to accommodate something that is a normal part of living so close to people. It's also annoying to me that I feel like we are doing things to accommodate them when this is our space and we should be able to walk around and cook when we want. Either way, we would invite them over for dinner at some point to smooth things over and to try and establish a better relationship. But in the meantime, am I the jerk for not wearing slippers in my own home? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it just seems like you have awful neighbors. These people are literally trying to be like, oh yeah, you're making too much noise. But then when you complain about their noise, they're like, no, you need to wear house slippers. Like, that's ridiculous, and I just can't see a good reason for anybody to act that way. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I just think it's ridiculous that you should have to change your entire routine for people who literally will not do the same for for you. Entitled customers keep trying to break into a destroyed shop after a car literally goes through the front of our store, forcing us to close down for months on end. And I've honestly never been treated more poorly in my life, simply by trying to keep people safe and keep people from breaking the law. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, a car crashed into the front of my old workplace. It destroyed the entire front of the store, it damaged the building structure, shattered all the glass all over the place, and we had a small fire in the front. Everything really fell apart from there on out, from needing whole repairs done to the store to almost 8 months of cleaning up the mess caused by the inability to legally cover the storefront up until it was able to pass all the inspections, not to mention the complete destruction left in the car's wake. Now, I was on the cleaning crew after we were allowed to enter the building again, and oh my god, I absolutely hated it. And this is not really about the aspect of cleaning it up. That actually went really well. Instead, it was the insane amount of people attempting to enter the building anyways. We had huge signs stating that we were closed. We had no front doors. We had boarded up the hole in the wall, and we had signs stating anyone inside was cleaning and not actually helping customers out. But despite all of that, people still snuck in, ripping holes in the temporary boards, trying to get in through the back of the store, or attempting to follow us inside when we threw anything in the dumpster. And when we finally got one part of a door in, people kept trying to get in the locked door. Phone calls demanding a manager for not letting customers in were frequent. We would all answer them and state that we are closed and had no idea when we would be reopening. I mean, at one point, I was even carrying out a part of a car's bumper when I had a woman scream at me for not letting her enter the building. And my only real course of action was to state that we weren't open and to come back in a few months. Eventually, we had to have someone keeping guard of the doors when they were finally put back in, because while they were adding some extra support to our pillars and doing electrical work, people kept walking in and trying to shop. And this is all when we literally had nothing set up, and we still had to throw away the products that we could no longer sell. It was so stupid. Every time we had someone try, we just put up more signs. It was all we really could do. Corporate would straight up tell customers, well, if you're calling about this location, they're literally closed because the building partially collapsed. And this was really the only way that they could tell people on the phone to get lost and to stop trying to get in, or even to get them to stop talking garbage about us for just trying to clean up. We even had to call the police because a few people just refused to leave, some even threatening us while in their cars, with others leaving and coming back when we were on break to attempt to threaten us all then, with others just showing up with a 911 operator on the phone while demanding the operator send officers down to force us to let them in, which by the way would have been very illegal to let them in considering the state of the building and the safety gear that we needed just to be inside. I honestly just don't get it. There wasn't any specific age that did it more often, and it really was an equal amount of older folks and people my age, and anywhere in between were just weird about this. But on top of that, plenty of people were also very understanding about it. I just don't understand the weird entitlement to demand some place that's not even open to the public, that you literally can be arrested for unlawfully entering at the time. But even then, you still want to go shopping? I'm honestly not sure what to think about anybody anymore, because the way we got treated was really stupid. Yeah, I think it's one of two things. Either people really are too dumb to realize that the store is absolutely closed, or they just want to run in there and try to rifle through any products that might still be on the shelves. So you basically had your pick of thieves or just complete idiots. But either way, that's really annoying, and I definitely would not want to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for having my neighbor's cars towed out of my garage after they parked it there without my permission? Because right now the entire neighborhood is mad at me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my house is being built in a neighborhood that is a few years old. My lot is one of the few remaining lots, and there are occupied houses surrounding me. The exterior is basically complete, and the contractors are in the process of putting up the drywall. After work the other night, I decided to drive out to inspect the work, and everything really looked fine until I decided to check out my garage. When I opened the door, I saw 2 cars and a minivan parked inside of my garage. So I called the contractor to see if he knew anything about them, and he was just as perplexed as I was. My guess is that one of my neighbors decided to park their cars inside of my garage because there was a slight chance of hail the other night. At first, I was going to leave it alone, but the more I thought about it, the more angry I got. By the time I got to my car, I was steaming mad. So much so that I called a tow company and had them tow all 3 vehicles away. The next morning, my contractor called me and told me the police was there to investigate the theft of the vehicles. I had them put the police on the phone and explain that I was the owner of the property. I had the vehicles towed and gave them the tow company information. My contractor then told me later that the owners of those vehicles were shouting and cussing them out until the police made them leave. I went by after work and a guy confronted me about being such a jerk for having their vehicles towed. towed. He was shouting about how I ruined their day because they missed work and their kids were late to school because of it. He also said it cost almost $1,000 to get all 3 vehicles back, and that according to him, I will be covering the cost. Well, I told him good luck with that, and that he's a jerk for parking in my garage without my permission. We went back and forth until his wife came and pulled him home. Some of my other neighbors came out to watch our argument, and afterwards, some of them told me I was starting off on the wrong foot and that I should be apologizing to that guy. They said that I should be more neighborly and understand that neighbors help each other out. One of them even said that I should have left a note instead of having them towed. So right now it seems that all my neighbors are against me. Now I can see their points, but seriously, did I overreact here? What should I do? No, I don't think you overreacted at all. Who in their right mind would feel justified in parking their car in someone else's garage? Like, first of all, just because the person's not home and you're clearly working on the house doesn't give you blanket permission to do whatever you want with their property. That is so uncalled for, because I guarantee you if you did that to that guy, he would have called the police and thought nothing of it. He would have towed your vehicle the second he saw your car. But the fact that it happened to him is the only reason he's getting upset. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. These people are so backwards it's not even funny. And if anyone's starting off on a wrong foot in this neighborhood, it is quite literally all of your neighbors. Am I the jerk for warning my in-laws to not move to my hometown, all because I knew how toxic that hometown was, and I knew that they would have a bad time just like I did? Here's what happened. So my in-laws moved back in June. They had been planning this move for several months and had their house up on the market before they told my husband and me. They had mentioned the name of a small town they liked and were considering their #1 choice of location. I know the place well because it is my hometown, and I fled that place right as I was turning 17 and I never went back there. There are 0 happy memories of my hometown for me, as I was raised in one of those families. The ones that are the talk of everybody in town for all the wrong reasons. I'm the only member of my family who did not go to prison or get in trouble with the law, but people still hated me because of who my family was. Growing up there was a nightmare, and the one friend I had back then got a lot of garbage from everybody just for being friends with me. Teachers treated me like garbage, and she was thrown under the bus alongside me many times. Even her family gave her crap for being friends with me. When all 3 family members were arrested together, I decided I just needed to run away and get far away from there, or I would live in a literal nightmare until I turn 18, and I knew that it would happen. Well, my in-laws always knew that I came from a family that got in trouble with the law a lot, and they also knew that as a result, I had a bad reputation from where I came from. They didn't know my hometown until that came up when they mentioned their move, and I gave them a friendly heads up and a warning that living there and making their association to me known really would not be a good idea, and that they would likely be treated very poorly as a result. My husband suggested there were so many other places they could look at, but his parents had their hearts set. My husband and I worried for his much younger siblings who are still in school, and I knew that most, if not all, of my past teachers would still be there, but I had hoped that they wouldn't be too open about me. They moved there in June, and by August, they had mentioned me to some people, or some people that had seen photos of me and my husband in their home. And when my siblings-in-law started school, it really wasn't great. They found it hard to make friends, and one of them was even denied a place on the football team as a result. Parents also don't want their kids associating with them, and they also notice neighbors are less friendly. They don't get the same chit-chat they liked when they first moved in, and they heard a lot of hate about my family, the kids especially. And now my husband's parents are mad at me, and they acted like I didn't warn them. So I reminded them that I did give them a friendly warning, and they couldn't say I didn't, so they shouldn't blame me. My husband had my back on that and told them the exact same thing. They then told me that I shouldn't be saying, "Oh, I told you so," when my husband's siblings are being negatively impacted. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You gave these people so much warning that they shouldn't move there, it's not even funny. Like, for starters, any town that acts like that towards a family and holds this weird, like, multi-generational, like, grudge of some kind, that's the clear sign that these people not only really suck, but they're also gonna spend the rest of their lives in this stupid town pretty much forever. And that's not fair for you or your family in the slightest, especially the original poster, because it doesn't sound like they were a bad kid. They just had bad family members who made some awful decisions. And the fact that anybody would be like, wow, anyone associated with that family is also bad. Like, what kind of exclusionary tactic is that? Like, these are not good people, and I don't blame you for warning your in-laws. So for them to follow through and move there anyways, despite the fact that they are literally connected to you in a serious way, in my opinion, is so stupid. That is literally their own fault, and they did this to themselves. So if they really want to blame anybody, they should look back in the mirror and blame themselves, because you literally did everything you could to warn them of what was going to happen. An entitled customer freaks out and starts screaming at me after I messaged a random contact on their phone, informing telling them that they left their phone in my store and that they need to pick it up. Because right now, after the way I just got swore at, I seriously don't know if I'm the jerk, and right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I work retail in a relatively small town, but it is actively growing and there are lots of businesses, and customers often come in with bags from other stores in the plaza. If you lose something, it is unlikely that you'll find it quickly, if at all. And this is why I was initially comfortable with what I did. A few weeks ago at work, someone left a very expensive iPhone by accident. After a few hours, she still did not come back for it, so I checked if it was locked, and thankfully it wasn't. So I went to messages, I tapped on the first contact I saw, and I left a message explaining where I worked, where the phone was, and I asked them to contact her household about the phone. Now, I did not look through the conversations or anything else on the phone, and after that, it went back into the safe room until she came to claim it. Now, I thought it was a reasonable thing to do, as I've seen that happen in media, even though I've never dealt with this in real life. But this lady actually came back in less than an hour later, cussing up a storm and calling me awful names to my face and to my manager. It turns out her expensive unlocked phone was her business phone, and I had messaged a client. My manager did her best to calm her down and get her to leave as soon as possible, because I was clearly about to cry. And thankfully, my manager made it clear that I wasn't in trouble after she left, and then we just moved on. Well, all of this happened in front of a customer who was waiting, and when I came back to check her out, she said she heard everything, and she was appalled by the phone lady's reaction. This customer said that she would have been grateful in that situation, and generally reassured me that I shouldn't feel bad. When I went home, I told my mom about it, and she basically told me that I was dumb to do that, but agreed that the phone lady was overreacting when I had good intentions. And at this point, I have no idea how to feel about it anymore, but I probably won't be going out of my way like that ever again. What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk here. Like, first of all, you were trying to do a good thing for somebody who left their phone, because I know if I was in that situation, I would be so livid. Phones are already expensive enough, but to lose it like that would have been a nightmare, especially since this is a business phone that this lady has. Like, seriously, why would you not want to get that back in a timely fashion? It is nobody's fault except for her own that she left the phone at the store. And why should you have to try and save face for this lady? Like, it's not your fault that she left the phone at the store, that's hers. So for her to freak out like that is just completely unacceptable. So it's really weird to me that she would be like, wow, I can't believe you did that to me. Like, seriously, you were just trying to do a good thing and she freaked out on you for no reason. So no, you're not the jerk. I think you had really good intentions, and I know if I lost my phone, I would definitely want someone like yourself to find it and try to get it back to me. My entitled sister is demanding that my husband and I name our future daughter in the exact same way that she plans on doing it, by using some old vintage name that we're honestly not interested in. And after listening to her delusional ramblings about what we need to do for our child, my husband and I feel backed into a corner about our future daughter, and at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and I are both expecting our first baby. My sister is super in love with vintage names, and for about a decade now, she has talked everybody's ear off about how much she wants to have babies with these names. I know her top 3 names for boys and girls are names like Edith and Martha and Audrey, as well as Alan, Harold, and Stanley for the boys. I'm not sure which of these names my future niece or nephew will get, but I know they are still my sister's top choices. Now, my husband and I are not going for vintage names or any classic names. We chose the name Lyric, which is a pretty modern and not super common name. Now, my sister doesn't know the name yet, but she is aware of some names that we chose not to use. And honestly, she was upset that we didn't have a vintage name on there. She made all these suggestions, and I told her thanks, but we had a different type of name that we wanted. She then asked me why we didn't want to have the cousins match styles with their names, and she said how cute it would be to have 2 little cousins with matching old people names. She had this idea of doing this photo shoot when the babies are born, where we dress them like grannies and grandpas, and she said the old names would make everything so much more perfect. And eventually, I just stopped talking about it when she did not take no for an answer. I got lists of vintage names, sent articles on how vintage names are in style right now, and I just ignored all of it. She even sent me Instagram and TikTok accounts where it shows these babies with these vintage names, and she's like, oh, look at how cute that is. Doesn't this name sound so sweet for this little baby? Doesn't the vintage name add to the cuteness? And honestly, at this point, I didn't engage or buy any of it. And now my sister is crying and saying that I'm ruining this, and she commented like she can't use a vintage name for her baby because we're not doing that. So I told her straight up, just because I'm not giving my daughter a vintage name doesn't mean that she can't use a vintage name on her baby. I pointed out that they are 2 separate people with 2 different parents and we don't need to match. But she cried that it won't be the same. And why can't I see how dismissive my comment is? So seriously, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I really really don't know what to do. No, of course you're not the jerk in this story. Like, seriously, your sister is out of her mind. Like, here's a news flash for your sister. You do not have to name your baby in the same style as her stupid baby. Like, this is seriously so weird, it's not even funny. You mean to tell me that she's really getting bent out of shape because you guys don't want to have the same stupid name style as her baby? Like, she's really making this that big of a deal that she wants to dictate your daughter's future identity and like entire life based off of some stupid photo shoot she wants to do after they're born? Like, what is going on right now? That is not normal. You can't just make demands like that and act super entitled about someone else's child. That doesn't make any sense. And I think the best part about this is that she's actually like legitimately getting upset over this. She's crying and freaking out that you're not following along with her stupid trend, and that really is the definition of crazy in my opinion, because she has absolutely no say in your child's future name, and the fact that she does think that, in my opinion, is completely out of hand.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My uncle is an absolute menace in my extended family, as he has on multiple occasions ruined so many gatherings that it's now caused a divide in the rest of my family. Here's what happened. A few Thanksgivings ago, my uncle on my mom's side ruined the celebration in a huge way. We had extended family over, and a few of the adults were playing card games. My mother was winning, and my drunk uncle decided that she was cheating somehow. He accused her, she laughed it off, and he literally flipped the table they were playing on. It broke a bunch of glasses, and my mom was shoved into the corner with a table on top of her. And by the way, my uncle is around 6'4" and probably 230 pounds. My older brother, who is 5'3" and maybe 140 pounds, charges my uncle as soon as he understood what happened. More relatives jump in, but my uncle is the biggest by far. He's very much punching down at everyone trying to stop him. Now, I for the most part start gathering all my younger siblings and cousins and nieces, and I barricade myself into a room with them. The kids are screaming and crying, but I just have them huddled together to try and comfort each other. I hush them a bit and I listen at the door for anything. The next part I didn't see with my own eyes, but apparently my brother was beat down by my uncle. My cousins and father tried to chase my uncle out of the house, and they tussled down the hallway and eventually crashed into the door I had barricaded myself and the kids behind, but didn't break it down. Once they got my uncle outside, they locked the screen door to keep him out, because I guess they were trying to talk him down or something like that. The screen door we have is a metal mesh with metal framing as support, but my uncle was not going to let that stop him. He slammed on the door until the screen broke off of the metal bars in one corner, and this is supposedly when my dad brought out a weapon and chased him off the property. My mom's sister went out to drive around and find her husband, leaving 3 of her children stranded at our house, marking quite literally the end of the party. When the dust settled, my mother had some minor scrapes and aches from being pushed over, our door was broken, and my brother's eye was swollen shut, with my father looking incredibly pissed off. And this unfortunately leads into another sequence of events a few weeks later. The oldest daughter of the offending uncle was having her first child and had planned a baby shower at her parents' home. All of my cousins have a really close bond with my mom, as she's always opened our home to them whenever they needed a place to stay, or even just to have a place that they can vent. So my cousin really wanted my mom to be at her baby shower, but the only problem was that my uncle had never apologized. My mom's sister even told my mom that no apology was necessary and that she needed to get over it. She even implied that her husband's reaction was justified and that maybe my mom shouldn't have cheated, which, to be clear, my mom did not cheat. She just doesn't drink or use any substances, so it's easy for her to beat a few drunks at blackjack. Anyways, my mom refused to go. My cousin pleaded with her and was looking for any kind of compromise. And so my mom gave her 3 options. Either the uncle is not present at the shower, the uncle apologizes, or she will just not be showing up. And this very much upset my cousin, to the point where she began talking garbage to the rest of the family. My younger siblings, who mostly hadn't been informed of the extent of the drama, since I had managed to shield them enough from the actual event, were excited to go to the baby shower. After talking it over with my mom, she decided that I should go and take my younger siblings with us. My older brother quite obviously didn't want to be involved, but my mother thought the drama would cease if she would let us show our faces there, and that this would hopefully smooth things over. And in a way, she was right. The baby shower was largely uneventful, and my uncle basically stayed in his room the entire night. We didn't greet him when he made a brief appearance, and then we just eventually left the party. That side of the family wasn't invited to any of the family gatherings we hosted for the next couple of months, besides maybe a few of my cousins who were more well-behaved. But then eventually my mom's sister came around again, and then eventually my uncle along with her. And as you can probably guess, they never apologized. They just showed up less and never stayed at a party for a long time. And to top it all off, our screen door never got fixed, so I'm honestly hoping I don't have to deal with my uncle in that way ever again. Yeah, Yeah, that guy sounds like a very dangerous drunk person, and I don't blame you and your family for being hesitant to be around him in the first place. Like, this guy literally thought your mom was cheating, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna flip a table and get everybody injured. Like, that truly is insane, and I really hope things get better between you and your extended family. My mom and I are constantly having fights about money, and it's now reaching a breaking point as she is actively talking garbage about me behind my back to my siblings. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So ever since my dad passed away 3 years ago, money has become a major issue in the household. I still live at home at 28, mainly because I can't afford to move out, and also because I wanted to be there for my mom during these tough times. I earn about $27,000 and have credit card debt I'm trying to pay off. I also give my mom about $450 a month, which is more than I can afford. On top of that, I buy groceries for my sister and I, which comes up to about $200 a month because my mom refuses to help out with any groceries. I give my little sister and brother money whenever my mom can't afford to do so, and I take my sister out shopping or to the cinema once a month. I split the cooking with my mom, and I help with cleaning the house, and even give my mom additional money to send to my grandma. However, my mom often complains and tells me that I'm not doing enough. My mom works part-time and is claiming benefits, and I can't have a single conversation with her without her raising her financial worries. She has become extremely self-centered over the years, and the conversation must always revolve around her. She never asks about me and just doesn't care what I have to say. She also always tells my sister and I how she always feels so low. At first, we would be very sympathetic, but when we're hearing the same thing every day for 3 years, and she takes her stress and anger out on us, it starts to become unbearable. I've been dealing with anxiety for years, and I'm at a really low point in my life, and I feel like I've failed in all aspects. However, I always appear happy and bubbly in front of everybody. Yesterday, I came home from a work trip to see my mother sitting there with my brother, looking really gloomy, and she barely greeted me. Later, my brother proceeds to tell me that my mother spent the past hour complaining about me, saying that the money I give her isn't enough. She said the next time I spend her money, she is just gonna send it right back to me as it's useless, and she doesn't want it as it doesn't cover the remainder of the rent. She said she's not happy about how I'm not paying the bills, and that I should also be helping pay for the broadband, even though I'm giving her $450 a month. She also complained that the housing benefits she receives are low because I'm still living at home. Now, my siblings were extremely shocked at her behavior and defended me in my absence. And when I heard all of this, I was just completely broken. I just burst out in tears in front of my siblings. I felt so worthless in all aspects of my life, and I just couldn't cope anymore. I went on a walk at night to which my mother followed me, and I haven't spoken to her since, and she is also giving me the silent treatment as if I've done something wrong. Not to mention, a few weeks ago, we got into an argument because she demanded that I buy a brand new $300 bed because my brother is moving back home with us after graduating. Before this, my mom and I had an extremely strong relationship. I considered her my best friend. However, she's changed over the years and has become so nasty. I'm so upset and I'm hurt that I barely want to eat. Am I in the wrong for giving my mom the silent treatment? Sometimes I feel insensitive considering that she's also lost her husband, but I've also lost my dad, who I was extremely close to. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think your mom is ever going to change in regards to like how she treats you, but I think you absolutely can change your situation if you really wanted to. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be planning to move out. I understand that it's hard to afford that, but if you find enough roommates and enough people to jump in, you really can get your own place and have somewhere you can live besides this. And this especially sucks because you wanted to be there for your mom during these tough times that she's going through. Like, clearly your dad passing away has affected everybody negatively. So for your mom to be like, wow, you're not doing enough, you need to pay me more, you're not doing anything in this house, or to even begin to have that kind of conversation, in my opinion, is so inappropriate. Because from the sounds of it, you're the one doing everything around the house. So hopefully your situation can change sooner than later, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for taking part of my daughter's settlement money to pay for her tuition after she failed her senior year? Because right now she's claiming that I'm stealing from her, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 49-year-old female, and my daughter won a decent amount of money from a personal injury settlement a few years ago. Now, since she is a minor, the money has been in an account that I plan to keep until she turned 18 years old. My plan was to always give it to her once she's an adult, so she can use it however she wants, whether that's for college, a car, or if she just wants to save it up for the future. As long as she's using it responsibly, then I'm okay with it. Well, here's the issue that comes in. She failed her senior year of high school. 2024 has been a rough year for her, but she didn't put in the bare minimum effort, and she knows that. She has now begun to repeat the year, and the tuition for her school isn't cheap, and we've already paid for all of her years until now. Well, I decided that since she failed and has to repeat the year and decided to lie about it, I'm going to take this extra year's worth of tuition out of her settlement money. Well, when I did that, she flipped out, saying the money is hers and that I'm stealing it when both me and her dad have agreed on keeping that specific amount. She told her oldest brother that he should enjoy university because her money's paying for it, and this just goes to show that she has no concept of money, because if she knew how much university tuition cost, she wouldn't be saying this. Not to mention her brother was and has always been a better student. To make matters more complicated, she has always had bad spending habits, so I can't and won't give her that money until she's an adult, and she also considers that as stealing. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I absolutely think the original poster's the jerk here, but not for the obvious reasons of literally taking her money without asking. Like, how on earth did you miss the fact that your daughter is failing her senior year? Like, schools send progress reports all the time. They're always updating the parents on stuff going on, and I'm pretty sure if your daughter was on the verge of failing, especially her senior year, then you would probably know about it sooner than later. So sure, she's not doing what she needs to do, but you definitely never stepped up to the plate to help her either. So on that end, I think you're an awful parent, and the favoritism towards your son could not be more obvious. Like, halfway through the post, you start trashing your daughter all because money was involved. And it's like, oh, okay, now you want to be a parent, but where were you when she was literally failing all of her classes for months on end? But when it comes to the money itself, yes, I absolutely think you're stealing from your daughter to pay for something that you could have prevented. If you weren't so neglectful, you could have caught the fact that your daughter was not doing what she needs to do at school. And sure, there absolutely is blame that needs to be placed on the daughter, but for you to sit there and be like, oh my god, I can't believe you failed, and then act like she doesn't know what she's doing with money, when clearly you don't know what you're doing as a parent, in my opinion, is so ironic. So yes, you are the jerk for using that money on your daughter's tuition, because this all could have absolutely been avoided. My parents treated me like garbage throughout my entire childhood, and even treat me badly as an adult, that I'm now questioning everything I ever had to do with my parents. Here's what happened. So my brother and I are in our 30s, and my parents are in their 60s. A lot of people have told me that barring some serious cases that might be going on in the home, you always owe your parents a relationship, and that I should just talk to them about it. So I asked my parents what kind of relationship they want to have with me, but they scoffed at my question. And when I asked them again a few months later, they just rolled their eyes at me. I've asked my parents many times to stop scoffing at me and rolling their eyes at me, and always dismissing me, but I always end up causing a fight. When I try to talk to my parents, they usually react with haughty dismissal, ridicule, or interruption. It's uncommon for me to be able to speak a full sentence that they actually listen to and understand. As a small child, I caused a lot of fights with my parents by talking to them unnecessarily. By the age of 10 years old, I learned to minimize unnecessary communication. And these days, my relationship with my parents consists of them talking at me while I sit there passively. Before going to therapy, I thought that most parent-child relationships were like ours, but my therapist said that most parents take an interest in their children's lives. And I was pretty shocked, because my parents rarely ask me anything about my life or myself, and if they do, they interrupt me almost as soon as I start answering. My therapist also said that most parents are nice to their children. Well, my parents said they were nasty to me because they love me. Growing up, my friends would sometimes ask me, why are your parents so mean? And I would say, well, it's because they love me, implying that my friends' kind parents didn't love them. I was completely brainwashed by my parents. But all of this explains why I never felt bonded to my parents growing up. As awful as it sounds, I didn't love them. I learned pretty early on that I had to simulate love with on-demand hugs, as well as on-demand smiles and obedience and silence, while also just going along with ideological compliance. So I just faked it until I made it, but I never made it to the point of developing actual love for my parents, and I don't plan on doing that moving forward. Yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from, because that sounds awful. Like, I can't imagine having a household like that, where your parents literally just did not care about you in the slightest. They treated you like garbage and just literally did not do anything to make you feel comfortable in your own home. So personally, when it comes to that statement from the beginning, where people try to tell you, oh, you should always try to have a relationship with your parents. Like, if my parents acted like that, there's no way I would ever want anything to do with them. And why would I? Like, what you described sounds awful. They basically excused away all of their bad behavior, and that was not fair for you in the slightest. So moving forward, I really don't blame you, because what you described absolutely sounds awful. My grandma keeps coming over and gardening in my yard, including making changes to my late husband's memorial spot. And right now, I am so frustrated, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm so frustrated, and I don't know if saying anything to her was the right move. To preface all of this, I have a lot of privilege, specifically due to my grandparents who are fairly wealthy. They have bailed me out financially many times, they've helped with groceries, and most notably, they gave me a place to live very cheaply. They owned my childhood home, and when the old tenant moved out, they offered it to me. At first, they said they were giving it to me in full, with a $1 sale to make it official. My husband husband and I did not renew our lease for this, so we could move. Well, once it was too late to renew and our lives were packed up, then she suddenly said it would be a couple of years and that I would rent until then. Now, this is not what we agreed on, but the rent was severely discounted, so okay, fine, I guess. So we moved in because we literally didn't have much of a choice. Well, my husband ended up dying right afterwards and I started gardening. My grandma also loves to garden, and she told me I could do whatever I want with a yard. So I was planning things out and picking out plants. Well, the first thing she brings over are lots of plants, despite me saying, please let me pick out my own. She was not checking if they were cat friendly, as I do have strays, and she was bringing me things I wasn't even ready to plant. So she took it upon herself to start planting them in places I didn't want. Then, despite me trying to buy black mulch myself, she took it upon herself to be helpful and buy a bunch of brown mulch instead. Which, okay, fine, that's not a big deal, I guess. But it wasn't even my project anymore, it was hers. Well, then she was talking about how nice it would look wrapped around the house. And I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do with it, so I told her so. And that was the same thing with putting the rose bush that she bought under my bedroom window. I didn't even want that there. I came home 2 days ago, and the whole area had been mulched with the rose bush planted exactly how she wanted it. Well, yesterday, I came home to that mulch filled with plants that I didn't want, several of which are toxic to cats. And worst of all, my late husband's memorial spot had been supposedly fixed. It was a rose bush with black mulch around it that had his ashes sprinkled over it. It was meant to stay black. I didn't care if it blended with the rest. I had my own ideas for which plants to put next to it. And now all that black mulch is covered, so it blends with the rest, with plants being added around it, and one of which is a flower that I know he would have hated. I've been so polite about asking her to stop, but this is just too much. So I got mad, and she seems so confused about all of this. So I'm honestly so frustrated right now, and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, this is a really crappy situation for several reasons, but the biggest one, in my opinion, is the fact that your grandma tricked you guys. She literally said, oh yeah, you can buy our house for $1, and then she waits until you guys are all packed up and ready to move in, only for her then to like pull the rug out from underneath you and be like, psych, just kidding, you're gonna rent. And it's like, well, at this point, I got no choice but to move in. So that's like a big immediate red flag in my opinion, and you guys did not deserve that. But when it comes to the whole gardening situation, as well as her messing with your husband's memorial, like that all sounds incredibly intrusive, and it's just completely inconsiderate to you and your feelings. Not to mention your cats and these toxic plants that are all around the house. Like, is she trying to do this on purpose, or is this just willful ignorance? But either way, it sounds like your grandma's being very selfish towards you, and it really seems like everything in your life recently has revolved around what your grandma wants instead of what you want. And that would personally drive me insane. So if I was dealing with this, I would have said something as well. Like, she's being very rude and absolutely inconsiderate towards you, and that is not fair in the slightest. Because setting boundaries like this is never a bad idea, especially if you have someone as intrusive as your grandma. An entitled jerk follows me around as I deliver the mail, demanding that I confess that I'm the one who lost his package that he's looking forward to. But despite the fact that I had nothing to do with this stupid package, this guy refused to take no for an answer, escalating things in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, something that I simultaneously love and hate the most about being a rural mail carrier is that you are always alone. Well, this morning I received a call from a customer who said he never received a package that I had delivered yesterday. So I checked the shelves, looked up his tracking number, and saw that the package was scanned at the time I was at a stop. I then told him that I would look for his package today. Now, 90% of my route is comprised of CBU banks, and CBU stands for Cluster Box Unit. So was it possible that I accidentally misread the address on his package for a similar one in some kind of dyslexic moment? Yes, of course, I never rule out that possibility, but I know I have dyslexia. It's something I've dealt with since I was a grade schooler, and it's why I carefully read each address. Maybe a minute after I arrive at his stop, and halfway through the CBUs, a large black pickup truck pulls up directly behind my vehicle. Now, being a rural mail carrier, I rarely, if ever, see my customers face to face, but my instincts tell me that this is the guy I spoke with on the phone earlier this morning. Now, something to note here, as a contracted rural mail carrier, I drive my own personal vehicle and I don't wear a uniform. There is no way to tell from a distance that I'm a mail carrier, and there are no markings identifying my car as a mail carrier. I just look like any other hundreds of cars on the highway. This guy lives a mile and a half down the road from where his box is located, and there is no other way to get to his house and no alternate routes out from his road. Yet he pulled up right behind my vehicle from the highway, almost as if he was driving around looking for me. Now, having spent 7 years working retail, I immediately go into customer service mode and I ask him, "Hi there, how can I help you?" Well, this guy stands about a foot away from me and and says, "I'm here to see about my package." Now, there's nothing wrong with that sentence itself, but there was just something sinister in his tone. And the way he held himself immediately made my skin crawl and put my nerves on edge. I told him that I wasn't done yet, and I hadn't gotten to his stuff yet, but he continues to stand there unmoving, just staring me down. He doesn't go back to his truck until a kind old lady pulls up in her little car, but still he refuses to get back in his truck. Instead, he pretends to be busy with something on his phone, all while still watching my every move. As I was working, I was checking every box and paying attention to those who lived on his street or had similar house numbers as his. None of them had checked their mail since before yesterday, and none of them had received any parcels. After I finished up, I told him, "Your package isn't here." But at that moment, I get the feeling that he already knew that, and it was definitely in the way that he had spoken to me when he first got there. He then asked me with his arms crossed, staring down at me, "Well, what are you gonna do about it then?" So I tell him, "Nothing at the moment. We can wait and see if one of your neighbors mistakenly received it and turns it in, or you can just report it as missing." Now, I'm neurodivergent, and my tone during the entire interaction has been flat, neutral, and matter-of-fact. It's my default tone when I'm speaking, but this guy starts getting agitated. He said to me, "So you're not going to admit that you lost it?" And it's like, no, why would I? We don't know that it's lost. His neighbors haven't even checked their mail, and at this point, I'm 75% sure that he's lying, just so he can get a refund on whatever he purchased. The other 25% is either he lost it, or another member of the household checked the mail before he did and just didn't tell him about it. But thankfully for him, I don't speak these thoughts out loud. He kept pressing for me to admit that I was the one that lost his package, and he's following me as I walk around my vehicle and just refusing to leave. All the while, the kind old lady is still in her car, watching and listening to this all play out. His behavior has long since crossed the line into something that's not appropriate, and I tell him that I have not lost his package. He then says to me, "I've been standing over here minding my own business. I just want to know what you plan to do about my package." So I straight up tell him I'm not going to do anything about it. You can call the postmaster. Now please, just go about your day. Well, it's right then that he calls me a horrible name and then hops in his truck and slams the door as he speeds off. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that the lady was there for all of it, I'm certain he would have tried to escalate things even further. Wow, that is really scary, and I think the original poster is absolutely right. If that old lady wasn't there watching all of this go down, that guy absolutely would have tried to start a fight with you. Like, that is so crazy to me. There's just no good excuse for treating someone like that. And the fact that he was following you around and screaming at you about some mystery package that he probably lost, by the way, that is insane behavior, and I would never let that happen again without recording it. Like, this guy has nefarious intentions, and I think he would have fought you if that lady wasn't there. So hopefully you report this guy for being like really physically aggressive towards you, as well as following you around the neighborhood when you're just trying to do your job, because all of this was completely inappropriate.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for telling my roommate to go back home if she can't handle college after she's continuously whined about how hard college is? Because right now, she's spreading a rumor that I'm a bad roommate, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, let me start off by saying this. I have been called a rude person in the past, and I blurt out things that I think without thinking about if it would hurt in front of me. And over the years, I've gotten better at it though. This year, I made it to my dream college, and I come from an extremely low-income household, so I worked on scholarships, awards, and much more to get into this college. I took student loans out to afford the remaining of my tuition. Now, for my freshman year roommate, I didn't really try to find out if I could choose or anything like that, so I just went for someone random, and the girl I'm rooming with is quite the opposite of me. She comes from a highly rich and well-to-do family, and she acts like a brat. I've constantly seen her lock down or hide her expensive jewelry as if she believes I will steal it. She constantly talks about how she misses her home, as well as the amenities and the people. For the first week or so, I understood, because I was homesick as well. But then, into the third and fourth week, I would walk into the room to see her crying about how tough it is having to do everything by herself. She complains about the cost of Ubers and having to cook and clean for herself. And by the second month, I would walk in to see her whine so many times that finally I told her the truth. I said to her, "Don't come to college if you aren't prepared, because if you're not, then go back home. You don't need to whine about it so much when there's a very simple solution available to you." Well, after I said that, she was visibly upset and left the room. I barely ever see her in the room anymore, and it seems like she sleeps elsewhere, and at first I didn't really care because she didn't make it a big deal. Well, yesterday I asked a guy out in one of my classes. He is cute and sweet, and we usually talked a lot during class, and I wanted to pursue the relationship. But in the end, he rejected the offer politely and said that one of the reasons was that he was not interested, and also he heard that I was generally a rude rude person to my roommate. I texted my roommate to ask why she was talking about me being rude, and she said she was talking to her friends about something that made her upset. However, I know for a fact she isn't friends with the guy in my class, as he mentioned that he heard this from someone neither of us knew. So right now, I'm honestly pissed off, and I want to know if I'm the jerk, so I can consider apologizing if I am. What should I do? Yes, you are definitely the jerk here. First and foremost, your definition of someone being a brat is completely overblown, because it doesn't sound like this lady's spoiled or like bratty in any kind of way. She's homesick and she's not used to being at college. And also, her locking up her stuff doesn't mean that she thinks you're gonna steal it. It just means that she's trying to, like, I don't know, take care of her belongings. Like, you made a bunch of assumptions about her character, when in reality, I think you're just projecting. And it also sounds like you're just jealous of her financial situation with her family. And it's like, okay, but that's like not her fault. Being out in the world on your own for the first time, no matter how rich and privileged your family is just really stressful all around. And you lack so much empathy for your roommate. She's trying her best to adapt to college. That's not gonna happen overnight because, you know, she has emotions unlike you. And the whole reason why she's not sleeping in the dorm anymore is literally because you're a jerk. She doesn't feel safe there anymore. Like, if I had a roommate in college that talked to me like that, I would leave as well. Like, that is such an awful thing to do, and I just can't believe you would treat someone like that. And honestly, things got so much worse because the original poster even clarified that this is a foreign student. And it's like, come on, how can you not have some kind of sympathy for their situation? That would have been a good opportunity to step up and be a friend, or at least try to help her feel at home. But instead, you ostracized her and made her feel like garbage. And that, in my opinion, makes you sound like an awful human being. So yes, you are the jerk, and I think the bare minimum that you need to do is definitely apologize. Am I the jerk for not allowing my friend to spend the night after she had canceled her reservation at the hotel at the last moment? Because right now, I feel really guilty, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I have a friend that we will call Mia. She is staying in a different city, and she had planned to visit our town one weekend. She decided to spend the weekend with me, and I agreed and enjoyed her company at home. We had discussed all the details a few weeks in advance, and thus, I revised my schedule to accommodate her visit. However, on arrival, there were a few days from when she would have stayed at my place, and this is where the story takes a rather odd turn. Actually, a few days before, she was calling me to say that she had canceled her hotel reservation as she had read about a better deal on a last-minute booking site, and she wanted to stay at my place instead, assuming that it would be more convenient and a lot easier on the pocket as well. She said that she would still come, but she had to stay an extra night because her new booking had shifted. Now, of course, I was a little surprised by this new plan. I had prepared my guest bedroom for her and rearranged the rest of my schedule to suit her original plans. After receiving some confirmation, however, I agreed to change and let her stay one more night too. Well, the day before she was due, Mia texted me and told me that her new hotel had a few issues and she would have to stay with me for 2 more nights. That way, she'd be staying at my place almost the entire week. And I worried because my house wasn't set up for long-term guests, and I had other commitments that I hadn't planned for anyways. Now, I had prepared myself only for the weekend trip and was not equipped with any provisions in terms of food, space, and so on, especially for such a long stay. So I told Mia that due to all of these limitations, I could not accommodate her for extra nights, and may suggest to her that she might find some other place to spend the nights that she would be spending in the city. I told her I would help her find the adjacent place to stay or just to give her recommendations. Well, Mia replied exacerbated. She said it was not fair for me to change plans at the last minute and that I was acting like a poor sport. She mentioned she was in an awful situation and that I should have done better considering I had always agreed to host her. She also tossed in there the feeling of being let down and disappointed that I wasn't acting like the better friend while in town. After that, Mia hardly spoke to me and our communication deteriorated. I felt bad because she was upset, but somehow I also felt that I had been very clear with my limits and I did offer her solutions. It's making me think and it's raising a lot of questions. Did I really do wrong by not extending her stay when I had already accommodated so much on the shortened visit? Am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really sounds like Mia was trying to take advantage of your kindness. Like, it really does sound like you moved around your entire schedule to try and make this work for her, and she's turning around and acting like, oh my god, I can't believe you're changing plans last minute. But it's like, lady, are you kidding me right now? You've literally done that like what, twice now for the original poster? They scheduled you for a specific amount of time, and for you to be like, oh yeah, I need to stay what, 3 more days? That won't be a problem, right? But it's like, yes, that is going to be a problem. You can't just drop that on someone and expect them to be okay with it. So no, I do not think you're the jerk here, and I think the way that Mia was acting is incredibly immature. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not being comfortable with an older person in my class, as he is constantly bragging about being born in the 90s and is putting down anybody who disagrees with him in any kind of way. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm almost 25 years old, and recently I went back to a community college to get my life back on track. Most of my classmates are younger than me, which is to be expected, but there is this one guy who's 33 who was born in 1991, and he constantly brags about being a 90s kid. He comes to class late every single day with the same cringe excuse. He would just say that the 90s were so much better than this garbage. Whenever the class discusses mental health or current events, he'll just interrupt and call us woke or Gen Z garbage. He is also dismissive of anything related to pop culture. For example, when we talked about the upcoming Harry Potter reboot on HBO Max, he laughed at me for saying I grew up with the movies and books. He bragged that I was too young to experience them when they were first released. He also judges me for meeting friends outside of college, saying I'm gone past the age of going out for beers with a few mates, and I should be investing my time into more important things in life. And when we're trying to study or just do classwork, he would be blasting music from the 90s, namely hip-hop or early Eminem, or just watching YouTube videos while the rest of us are doing our assignments. If one of us asked him to turn it down or suggests he does work like the rest of us, he will just call you a stupid kid or Gen Z trash. He also rants about how this generation is too soft and needs to man up, and how today's movies and TV shows are all cringe, and just constantly comparing anything to the 90s, and how the 90s is always superior. Our teacher asked us to be nicer to him and understand that he's a lot older than everybody in the room. So I did, and I accepted him on social media, but his Instagram and WhatsApp is literally just 90s nostalgia on repeat, as well as football and memes. So am I the jerk for finding this guy very cringy and a massive nuisance? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk, and this guy's a moron for acting this way. In my personal opinion, no one in their right mind should ever be like, oh yeah, my generation is so much better than your generation. Especially if you're gonna use it in like a divisive tone, or they try to act like they're better than you based on the year that they were born. Like, I've seen people act that way, but then it's like, why are you doing that? No one's impressed by your weird anecdotes, and you're not making any friends around you, especially if you keep calling people stupid kids, while also saying, oh yeah, you guys are too soft, you need to man up. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for finding this guy annoying. And if I was in your shoes, I would be complaining to the professor and saying that this guy is interrupting my studies, because truly, that's exactly what he's doing. Am I the jerk for calling out my cousin for being a terrible nurse and harming her patient in ways that she might not realize? Because right now, my entire family is kind of against me on this, and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so every year, my extended family gets together and we have a family picnic. It is a lot of fun, and we typically have a great time. However, it was very different this time around. My cousin, who's 32 years old, was in attendance, and typically whenever we see her, she likes to tell and rant about her job, as she works as a nurse. And here's the story that she told this time around. A woman came into her hospital and needed an IV placed. The problem was that said patient was very needle phobic and let my cousin know ahead of time. The patient then proceeds to do coping mechanisms that she had learned, which was to close her eyes, take some deep breaths, and hold her sister's hand while also crying like a baby. Now, my cousin's opinion on the situation was that it was totally ridiculous, and she let her patient absolutely have it. In her words, she sternly told the patient to grow up and that her antics were ridiculous. The patient's sister then explained that she had a genuine phobia and to please be patient with her, but my cousin responded that it wasn't her job to deal with anybody's irrational fears and to not waste anybody else's time. My cousin placed the IV in while the patient was absolutely hysterical, with my cousin eventually leaving the room. Later, the patient's sister requested to not have my cousin as her nurse ever again. At some point, my cousin was confronted by the sister, who called her a nasty troll for talking to a patient in that way and berating somebody who was going through a hard time and was facing her fears. But my cousin doubled down and told her that if the patient's fear is that bad, then she would need to seek therapy for it and not waste everybody else's resources. Now, here's where I become very concerned. The patient's sister says that her sister has been doing cognitive behavioral therapy, and she's been doing this for a while to manage her phobia and her medical anxiety, and had been making some really good progress. But now, the patient is refusing to seek future medical treatment and says that she would never open up about her fear ever again and is potentially regressing in her treatment, which she blamed my cousin for. Now, for some background, I'm a therapist and I specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy. Many of my patients have phobias and medical anxiety. I've seen firsthand how debilitating it all can be, and I've had a few patients in the past who've regressed because of traumatic moments, and it seems likely that this would happen to the patient in this story. Well, my cousin proclaimed that it was ridiculous for the patient's sister to claim that it's her fault for the patient regressing in her treatment. But I told my cousin cousin that yes, it was kind of her fault. I told her that she chastised someone who was doing her best to overcome a struggle, and because of that, the patient would potentially never seek medical care again, or even be honest with her medical team. Well, after I said that, a lot of fighting ensued, and now some family members are on my cousin's side, saying that she was doing her job and that I made her feel bad, while others are on my side, saying that I was in the right and had the experience to call her out. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here at all. Your cousin is a massive jerk, and the fact that she's a nurse at a hospital and acting like this, in my opinion, is proof that she should not be in that profession. And you know what? If anybody knows what they're talking about in this situation, it would be you. So for people to seriously side with your cousin and be like, oh my god, I can't believe you would talk to her like that, that in my opinion is completely insane and so uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not putting my partner on the deed of my house? Because right now she is very upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I've been with my partner for 19 years. We have 2 kids together and we are unmarried. Now for starters, I had a really awful childhood. Foreclosures, evictions, divorces, psycho stepdads, and a strung out mom. Ever since I was a little kid, literally since the age of 8, I dreamed of owning a home free and clear so I would never have to experience that kind of nightmare ever again. My partner had a lousy childhood too, although not quite a horror story like mine was. After graduation, she was buried in debt and her degree didn't make her very employable, which is right around when we met, and she didn't think much or at all about real estate. By the time I was 25, I had bought 2 houses. I promptly lost them both in the 2008 market crash, and then in 2011, there was an unbelievable opportunity. I cashed out my $60,000 from my 401k retirement account, and I paid cash for an absolute dump downtown. I spent all the money from my retirement account to buy the house and fix it up, and when I ran out of money, I borrowed some more. Remodeling the house wasn't easy, and my partner was with me through all of this. She labored and worked, but it was always my money. When the house was finished, and we'd been living there for a few years, she got pregnant with our first kid. I stayed home to watch him during the day, and I worked at night. And eventually, the second kid came along. So for 9 years, I took care of the kids all day, and I worked in restaurants at night. We always split the household expenses 50-50, despite her making 3 times as much money as me. So she would give me the money, and I would pay for everything. Well, a little over a year ago, she started feeling dissatisfied with our relationship, and so we separated, but not really. She is renting a house from a friend, and we're still spending a few nights a week together. We still have family time with the kids, and it's mostly the same as it's always been. Over the last 6 months, we've been doing some therapy. She's got so many resentments, and so many are super valid, but the only issue I can't see her way on is that she feels that she should own about half the house, and I just can't see how that's fair for me. I paid cash for it 13 years ago, all before we even had kids. I never exploited the situation, and I never charged her rent. It was never an issue, and she never mentioned wanting to be part owner of the house. I really want to reconcile with her, and I love her very much. It's just that I have no support network, no family to turn to, and no retirement savings. My house is worth rock bottom in my city, and I have a 7 and 9-year-old who really need me. The only stability in my life comes from owning my home. I just can't risk putting her on the deed and having her leave again. So am I the jerk for not wanting to do this? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. You put all of your money into this. And sure, she did help out with like working on it and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, it was your money on the line. And in my opinion, unless you two get married or something like that, then I don't think it's a good idea to put her on the deed. My entitled sister demands that I hand over to her spoiled, rotten daughter a handmade doll that has very special sentimental value, claiming that I'm being selfish by withholding it from her daughter, and that I need to learn to let go of the past and not hold on to such childish things. And now I'm very frustrated, because after they left my house with my niece in tears that she didn't get what she wanted, I now feel like such a jerk, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So yesterday, we had a big family gathering, which meant my older sister and her 6-year-old daughter would come over. For half the day, everything was well and good, and after lunch, my sister got tired, so I volunteered to look after my niece when my sister took a nap. Now, I have a collection of stuffed animals and 20-centimeter dolls, which I let my niece play with when her mother was napping. Eventually, my sister woke up and joined us, and we spent some more time together before she announced that it was time for them to leave. Now, this was when my niece pointed at the doll that I was holding and said that she liked him and that she wanted me to give him to her. Well, I told her that she could get any other doll or any other stuffed animal that she wanted from my collection, but just not this one. Well, when I told my niece no, she got really upset and started crying, saying that her birthday was coming up next week and that she wanted that doll as her birthday present. But again, I told her that I couldn't give it to her, explaining to her that this doll was very important to me. Now, I didn't tell my niece in detail about why it's important to me because she's still too too young to understand, but I will explain it here to give a clearer picture. I've had this doll for a really long time now, all the way back in the darkest time of my life when nothing seemed to go right for me. During that time, I was advised to find an outlet, letting out my thoughts either in the form of writing or drawing, and one of my drawings was the design for the doll in this post. I spent a lot of time with it, shading it, coloring it, and all of that. Then I got the idea of turning the drawing into something physical. I searched and searched, and eventually I found someone that I trusted that could help me with this. For months on end, we worked together choosing the materials, fabrics, and threads to make my doll's body, hair, and eyes. I was so happy the day that I had him in my hands, and since then he has been my emotional support doll. I don't know if it's strange, but whenever I look at him, I just feel like I can overcome anything. So yes, he is very important to me. Well, my sister told me that maybe it was time for me to let him go. Again, I told him that I could give my niece any other doll or stuffed animal that she wanted, but this one is very special to me and she cannot have it. Well, when I said that, my niece cried harder and started screaming. My sister then told me that I was being an overgrown child and that I needed to act my age and stop clinging onto a toy. It eventually ended with her leaving with my still crying niece, telling me that I needed to prioritize my family over a doll. So right now, I'm very frustrated by this entire situation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I absolutely understand where you're coming from. That doll is so much more than just a toy for some stupid brat to play with and then eventually throw away. It literally represents you overcoming one of the darkest times in your life. It's a symbol to you that you really can push through the hard things in your life, and you can overcome any challenge in front of you. And in my opinion, I find that beautiful. Like, I really think that is very special, and that's obviously something that you want to hold on to. You don't want to give it over to anybody else because honestly, it is not for anyone else to have. So for your sister to stand there and say, oh, you need to grow up, you're being an overgrown child, you need to think about your family, that is all not only incredibly hurtful and disgusting, but also it's completely baseless. She's only acting like that because you, probably for the first time in this kid's life, told her that she can't have something. You denied this spoiled brat something, and it literally could have been anything, and this is the only reason why your older sister is upset, because clearly her daughter gets whatever she wants, and there's no boundaries or any kind of, like, I don't know, discipline for this kid. And now she's just upset with you because she has to deal with her kid's temper tantrum, all because she didn't get what she wants. And that, in my opinion, is the entire motivation behind why she was so nasty to you. Because ironically enough, everything she said to you literally could be turned around to her stupid, spoiled child. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, and I think the way your sister acted was so inappropriate. But also, and I seriously mean this, if you want to keep that doll for the rest of your life, it is definitely time to hide it and lock it up somewhere where they can't get it. Because I can see this happening. I can see this getting swept under the rug for like 5 months. Everyone's supposedly over it and they just kind of let the situation go, yourself included. And then one day, your niece and probably your sister are both going to try and get that doll out of your house. And that really is an awful thing to assume, but based on their reaction, I would not put it past them. And it is such a shame that you have to make these kinds of assumptions, but the way your sister and your niece reacted to you saying no kind of leads me to believe that they absolutely would resort to thievery just to get whatever this stupid brat wants. So truly, I really hope you're able to protect your property, because I'm seriously convinced that your sister has nefarious intentions, and it would really be a shame if she snuck in there and stole it from you without you knowing.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for refusing to share my inheritance with my siblings, even though the both of them are struggling financially? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. My parents recently passed away unexpectedly and left behind a will. In the will, my parents left me the majority of their estate, including their house and some savings. My older siblings were left significantly less, but they were given a fair amount as well. The reasoning behind this, according to my parents, is that I've always been the one taking care of them, helping them out financially, and managing the house. My siblings, on the other hand, have pretty much been absent. They've always struggled with maintaining jobs, and I've bailed them out financially several times. My parents believed that I would use the inheritance responsibly, whereas with my siblings, they were not sure. Well, this is where things get really tricky. Both of my siblings are now in a financial crisis. They've come to me asking if I'd be willing to share more of my inheritance to help them out, as they're struggling with rent, and one of them has medical bills that they can't cover. They've accused me of being selfish and not doing the right thing, since apparently I have more than they do now. But the thing is, I've already helped them out so many times over the years, often at the cost of my own financial security. I feel like my parents left things this way for a reason, and I should honor their wishes. I've worked hard to get where I'm at, and I feel like constantly bailing out my siblings won't teach them to be more responsible. I'm not rolling in cash cash either. I'm still working hard to build my own life and my own future. Now, my siblings have been telling our extended family that I'm greedy and heartless for not sharing more of the inheritance. And a lot of them agree. I feel a lot of guilt, but I'm also frustrated because I don't think it's fair that I'm expected to keep rescuing them. So am I the jerk for refusing to share any more of my inheritance? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. It seems like your parents knew what they were doing, and it's pretty obvious that you are clearly the responsible one of the family, and your other siblings are just not that reliable in the slightest. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would just follow your parents' wishes, because it really does sound like your siblings have had more than enough second chances, and in my opinion, it might be time for the both of them to stand on their own 2 feet. Am I the jerk for ordering a DNA test after I found out that my dad isn't actually my biological father? Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I've recently found out that my sister and I don't know who our biological father is. A few weeks ago, I was talking with my aunt, and we were a little bit tipsy, and she asked me when did I realize that my father, who we will call David, wasn't actually my biological father. Now, I was shocked to learn this, and I asked my twin if she knew about this, and she said to me that she's known about this for years, but thought that I knew as well. So I went around asking the family, and literally everybody knew except for me. I did feel a little upset that it took 20 years to realize, but it all just makes sense. My parents were married after my twin and I were born, and David, despite having nothing but love for all of us, did care for my other sisters just a little bit more. Now, it's important to note that I don't speak to my mother, and I haven't for several years now, so that was completely out of the question. So I decided to speak to David. David was very confused, as my mother said to him that she told us when we were little. He then apologized for keeping it a secret, but to him it doesn't matter. I am still his daughter, and he signed my birth certificate, and has been through everything for me. So basically, the story of how my twin and I came to be was from a drunken one-night stand, and then she started dating David a few weeks later. Now here comes the tricky part. Despite my family saying to leave it be, I went and ordered a DNA test to try and get some answers, because I just want to know who this man is. I don't want a relationship, and my respect for David hasn't changed, and I don't think it ever will. But if I know who this man is, it might help me figure out why I'm nothing like my family. So am I the jerk for ordering this DNA test? Because right now, I'm really not sure what to do. No, I do not think you're the jerk at all for wanting a DNA test for this. Like, for starters, this is massive news in your life, and you have every right to know this information for yourself. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. And anyone who says that you might be crossing a line by looking up this man, in my opinion, is completely out of line. My family is surrounded by a bunch of obnoxious old people who constantly remind me and my family why they don't want us in their neighborhood. And after dealing with this for over 6 years, I seriously do not see an end in sight. Here's what happened. Okay, so ever since we moved in, our elderly neighbors have taken it upon themselves to inform us just how much they don't want us here. For a bit of context, we live at the very end of a cul-de-sac, and the surrounding houses, save one that has a young single dude working from home, are all occupied by very entitled old people. I have a large family of about 4 to 5 people living here, and we have lots of visiting cousins and friends, so there tends to be a lot of kids running around both inside and outside, which seems to anger my neighbors as they're supposedly being loud and disruptive. They really aren't, but leave it to these idiots to find whimsy and joy upsetting. There was one day where my mother was talking with an officer in the street, all because of an earlier disturbance, when her ex got belligerent after being broken up with, and a lady 2 houses away from us comes storming up the road, pointing her geriatric finger at my mom, screaming about how we always cause such a disturbance and how we should have never moved in. And if there wasn't a literal officer standing right there, I fully believe this lady would have slapped her. And of course, she was sternly told to go home and quit screeching, to which she tried telling him that we should be fined or something because of how often we are so loud. He told her to leave again, and eventually she did. I have no idea why she thought it was smart to insert herself loudly into a police report that literally had nothing to do with her. Another time, we had a lot of family over, and I believe it was somebody's birthday, which meant a lot of kids under 10 were running freely around our yard while the adults were chatting and grilling around the porch. Also, our pit chow mix by the name of Roxy was laying in our yard. Well, our left side neighbor's ankle biter dog was off the leash it's usually on and came sprinting into our yard, and I believe towards one of my little cousins. Well, Roxy is extremely protective of the children in the family and was already chasing the dog out of the yard before the adults could even see what was happening. She nipped the dog's tail, but not at all hard enough to leave any damage. It was the lightest warning she could have possibly given. Well, cue the elderly ex-cop neighbor coming out of his house, brandishing his weapon, if you know what I mean, waving it around like an absolute idiot, while yelling about putting our dog down and that she was dangerous. He kept saying that if our dog wanted to mess with his, he would aim right between the eyes, which is so stupid to do and to say in front of a bunch of kids, not to mention those kids' parents, but I digress. Now, Roxy is okay and still watches that little dog with her mean side eye every time she sees it, which is really, really funny. Now, on a lighter and pettier note, the last elderly neighbor has a beef with my Nana, who is also incredibly elderly. The tree on his property reaches over onto ours and leaves a bunch of leaves and sticks on our yard, which my Nana doesn't like. She asked him to trim his tree so it at least stops shedding onto our property, and he responded to this by excessively mowing his lawn. Every single day last summer, he would get out onto his riding mower shirtless and mow his lawn, sometimes doing an excessive amount of laps just to get some kind of point across. He has admitted to my Nana that he does it in spite of her because his mower is so loud. I don't understand this, because he's hardly got a lawn anymore. It's practically just dirt because it's mowed so low so many times. The problem is that my room is the closest to him, so I'm the one that really gets bothered by his excessive mowing. Closing my window helps, but seriously, he really needs a new mower. That can't be safe if it's that loud. Also, I don't need to wake up and see a shirtless, sweaty old man riding in my view. Well, it's been about 6 years later and these people all still hate us, and I honestly don't see this getting any better anytime soon. Yeah, your neighbors are crazy. How can anyone in their right mind be upset about people moving into a neighborhood when they've literally done nothing to anybody else? Like, it seriously sounds like your family is just minding your own business on your own property. So for these elderly people to be like, wow, you're so rude and obnoxious, all while being rude and obnoxious themselves, it is so ironic it's not even funny. So hopefully these old people stay away from your property. And if they do, I really hope you have some kind of cameras, because these people sound absolutely obnoxious. An entitled old jerk tried to take my 6-month-old child out of my arms, as he felt that because my baby was smiling at him, he had every right to pick him up and hold him as he pleased. And I'm honestly still shocked by this interaction. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I were having a garage sale, during which an older white man stops by. I'm standing out front with my son in my arms on my left side, and my husband is sitting down, with my dad kind of in front of my husband, so he can't really stand up quickly without risking knocking into my dad. After looking around and not buying anything, this old guy comes up to where we were chatting with my dad, sees my son, and starts asking the tired yet very creepy questions. He would say stuff like, "How much for the baby?" And this is literally the third old person who said that today. Well, of course this old guy is directing this to my son, who upon hearing the word baby smiles at this man, and this old geezer took it to mean that he could try and take him out of my arms. This guy reaches for my son, who, mind you, doesn't even consistently reach out for me or my husband yet, as he's barely 6 months old, so I angle him further away, and I try to laugh it off while saying something like, "Oh, he's not for sale." Well, this guy literally tries to reach out again, so I shift the baby thoroughly to my left hip, and I angle my body away from this guy so that he is only getting the right side of my body. My dad realizes what's happening after freezing for a moment and says, "Oh, he likes his mama," and my husband is staring daggers at this guy, but as there are other people in the garage browsing, he's trying to keep his cool. This old weirdo laughs it off and wanders back to his car, while my husband, my dad, and I all just ask each other if that really just happened. I've had older people touch his feet without permission before I could maneuver us away at stores, but this was so uncomfortable and far beyond that. My husband was finally able to stand up once my dad moved and immediately grab my son, telling him that mama kept him away from the stranger danger. But I still feel like I could have been more forceful. We were all pretty weirded out by that for a while, and even my older neighbor who had her own sale going on was incredibly shocked when we explained what happened, because what he did was so unacceptable, and he absolutely had no right to try and touch my son. Yeah, that is super inappropriate. You do not touch anybody's kids without their permission. You can't just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna hold that baby because it smiled at me." And it's like, dude, babies will literally smile when they fart. Like, what are you doing? Just because you're old, it doesn't give you permission to act like a weirdo. But overall, I think you handled this really well, because that guy was literally incredibly creepy. An entitled customer treats me like garbage after I check them out, give them their check, and see how they're doing, because the resulting awkwardness of this guy's weird attitude was just not worth it. And I'm now reconsidering my entire job as a server, because this literally just doesn't seem worth it. Here's what happened. Okay, so tonight I had a table that was good throughout the whole meal, and everything went well, and it was pretty typical. They asked me for their check, and I checked them out. Then the guy went up to the bar and bought a drink and brought it back to the table, and they were just chilling with food in their boxes and everything else. Now, I thought it was kind of weird, because he did ask me for the check. So if he wanted a drink, then why not just order one at your table? But whatever, I really don't care about that, as I was just thinking to myself, okay, maybe they're just staying to drink a little bit. So I checked on them twice. You know, like a quick, "Everything good? Do you need anything?" Stuff like that. And maybe it was twice too close together, but they were right by the kitchen, so I had to keep walking by them over and over again. The second time I checked on them, the guy says to me, "Do you want us to leave? You keep asking if we're okay, and we already paid." Now, I was shocked at this reaction because he had not been like that all throughout the meal. So I said to him, no, and I said that with a clear attitude back to him. He then starts talking to the girl that's with him about me, but not directly to me. And I looked at her like, is he serious right now? And she's telling him that I'm just checking to see how they're doing. And then after that, I walked off and didn't say anything else to them. Also, to top off my night, I had 3 tables stiff me, which is the most I've ever encountered for a shift for me. So maybe my energy was off because I was not feeling it tonight. And then that happened right at the beginning. But my coworkers were saying that they got stiffed an unusual amount as well. I'm serving right now because I was in a high stress job where I took a lot of work home for me. So I wanted to step back from that for a while, but sometimes I wonder if that actually is lower stress because the way I got treated tonight honestly was so unacceptable. Yeah, I remember working in like a server job or even like a busboy job back in the day, and I always hated it when people had this kind of attitude when you're just trying to check up on them. And it's one where they like to pretend like, oh yeah, you don't want me here, fine, I'll just leave. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to check on you to see how your meal's going. It is not that deep, my man. So I definitely feel for the original poster because I know exactly what this is like. And dealing with someone like that who treats you in this way is never a fun time. Am I the jerk for keeping my late wife's money set aside for our children, despite the fact that I have 2 new children in my life after getting married again? Because my new wife is demanding that I spend that money on our family. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I lost my late wife when our children were very young. She had money that was hers, and we had joint and separate finances. And anything that was her separate finances is being saved for our children. Now, where the question of this entire post comes in is that I have remarried, and I have a stepchild and another biological child with my present wife. And she was aware that I only considered this money for the children I had with my late wife only. But recently, she feels it's unfair because they have money set aside for the future that will at least help them get started after they turn 18, while we sometimes had to make sacrifices due to inflation. The latest thing was that my stepdaughter wanted to join these dance classes that would help her in her dream of professional dancing. Now, we could not afford these specific dance classes, and my wife was very upset with me. She wanted to do this so badly for my stepdaughter. And for those who will ask, the biological father is not in the picture and has also not been found. So yes, he can pay child support, and he has been searched for on more than one occasion, but my wife has no idea where her ex is. She wanted to know why there's money set aside for just 2 of the kids for their future, instead of using it now to make our lives easier. Well, I told her my late wife wanted this for them, and I believe the money should be spent on my children with my late wife anyways. I told her we still had a good life, we just didn't have all the luxuries. And just like a lot of families, we struggled when inflation hit, but we were still doing very good. My wife cannot access this money, by the way, and I know that will be asked, and I also have arrangements made in case something happens to me. My wife then said that we could pay for extracurriculars for all 4 kids out of the money and have that off of our minds, and then we could get back to saving. But again, I said no. She told me I'm acting like my late wife had left a will with instructions, which she definitely didn't, and she also accused me of treating my stepdaughter and my youngest child as if they are somehow less than deserving. I said the money is not mine. It was my late wife's and it will be our children's, and that my wife should stop treating it as anything else. Well, she responded by saying that I'm being very unreasonable. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Is there something that I'm missing in some kind of way? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all because I completely understand where you're coming from. First of all, I think you have it completely right. This money belongs to your late wife, and I think you should save it for your kids. But also, I think it's incredibly inappropriate that your now current wife, even after knowing how you felt about the money that your late wife had, is treating you like garbage and basically being like, oh yeah, because you're saving that, you're basically saying that your new kids are not good enough. And it's like, wait a second, that is not what's happening here, and that is absolutely not fair. She's putting the original poster in such a weird spot in my opinion, and that just completely shifts the narrative in a direction that is completely not accurate. Just because you're saving that money for your first set of kids doesn't mean that you can't do the same for your new set of kids. Like sure, that money's set aside when they're adults or something like that, but like who's to say you can't do that for the new 2 children you have in your lives? Like the way she's going about this really makes it seem like she's just being super selfish about it. She sees these extra dollars in this account and she's like, wait a second, why can't we spend it now? And that is incredibly inappropriate, especially since she knew your plans from the very beginning. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your wife is being really selfish, and this, in my opinion, is a subject that absolutely should not be entertained. My entitled selfish uncle is trying to claim that my house that I inherited from my grandfather actually belongs to him. He's even gone as far as doing construction on my house without my permission, simply because he's going to be renting it from me for 3 years, and he feels he's entitled to do whatever he wants to it. And I'm honestly so frustrated by this man that I really don't know what to do. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I was very close to my grandfather who passed passed away last year. He left me his entire estate, including the house after my grandma divorced him. Before he passed away, my grandma had asked him to let her son, who is my uncle, rent the house. So they set up a 3-year contract for $1,800 a month, and at the end of it, he could buy the house for $377,000. And this contract ends this November. After a lengthy probate process, the house is now officially in my name. My uncle asked if I'd extend the contract because of high interest rates, but I didn't want to because I'm hoping to buy my own house soon. My grandma pressured me, saying that it's family, so I reluctantly agreed to extend it for 3 more years. While I was waiting for a new contract to be drafted, my uncle asked if he could start construction on the house, and I said no. But then a friend of mine who was doing the work told me that my uncle had already started construction without my permission. So I went to check it out, and sure enough, major work had been done without any kind of permits. I confronted him, and he just denied it until I showed him photos. He then claimed that it was his house and that he could do to it whatever he wanted. Later, during a family holiday, my uncle and his girlfriend ambushed me, proposing a 5-year contract with lenient rent terms, no restrictions on construction, and permission to sublet. Well, I refused and said that I would have my lawyer draft the contract instead. During probate, my uncle and his girlfriend discussed what they would prefer contract-wise that left it more open-ended. I continuously listened to their wants. However, I told them in the end I would send them a contract drafted by my lawyer once the house was in my name. A few months later, my uncle, his girlfriend, and my grandmother sent me the 5-year contract they had proposed during the family holiday, and I just firmly declined. My grandmother then called and berated me for not signing it, claiming that if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have inherited anything from my grandfather. And at that point, I lost my temper. I said to her, "You've got to be kidding me." She then responded by saying, "Your grandpa would be disappointed in the way that you're talking to me right now." But I just replied back by saying, "Don't use my grandfather against me," and then I hung up. Well, since then, my grandma and my uncle have cut me off. I had my lawyer draft a new contract that basically stated it would be for 3 years, no subletting, and a clause requiring my approval for construction. And the rest of the original contract from my grandfather is the same. Well, now my uncle is saying he can only qualify for $350,000 instead of the $377,000 that he owes. And my family is actually pressuring me to accept the lower offer, accusing me of forcing him out. So am I the jerk for refusing his contract, insisting that he either pay the full amount, sign my contract, or move out? Because right now, the family pressure that I'm experiencing just for standing my ground is absolutely obnoxious. What should I do? Okay, first of all, your family is absolutely obnoxious. They're asking for way too much out of you, and they're crossing so many boundaries it's not even funny. Like, your uncle literally started doing construction on this house without any permission from you. And for him to be like, "Oh, this is my house," like, that is crazy and so unacceptable. And everybody is so entitled around you about this stupid house. Part of me almost thinks like, okay, you got $350,000? Sure, that's more than enough. Take it and get out of my hair. But if I'm being completely honest, I think you should make them either pay the whole thing or just accept the modified 3-year contract that you spelled out. 5 years is a long time, and even 3 years is too long for me. But if I was in your shoes, I would want to keep the house. Like, if this house can be mine in 3 years, and this guy doesn't have the money to pay for it, why would I not want to have it? You could use that to get a different house or just live there if you wanted to. And it's just so rich that everyone's like, come on, he's so close to the $377,000. But it's like, people, the difference we're talking about is like $27,000. That's not just some spare change sitting around. That's a lot of money. So I think it's a good idea that you're standing your ground, because the way your family's acting is incredibly obnoxious.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
I cheated on my husband with a person from my work, and I'm now in the process of figuring out how I can tell him what I did, because right now I feel so guilty, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I've been with my husband for the past 6 years, and we've been married for 3. I met him in our postgraduate program and fell in love. He is the most wonderful man and an amazing life partner. He does everything right. He cares for me through thick and thin. He was my rock when I battled depression. He makes sure of the little things and the big things. He gives me reassurance whenever I need them, and I need them very often. He tells me every day how lucky he is to have me, how much he loves me, and how much I make him happy. And trust me, I know the irony of the situation. We moved to a new country 7 to 8 months ago, and it's been a really rough time since then, dealing with the lack of a social circle, a new culture, no job, some financial struggles, etc. Now, I found a job, but he is still looking for one, and every time he would get rejected, it would be taxing for the both of us, and this entire process is really devastating. So now onto the cheating part. I met this 30-year-old male at work, work, and we talked for a bit as I was just trying to connect with people at the office and trying to make friends. And to be honest, I did have a crush on this person, and I told my husband about this crush as well. I told him that I will take care of it, but I didn't stop. I should have stopped talking to this person right then and there, but I didn't, and I realize it now. During one of the conversations, somehow we confessed that we find each other attractive, and that led to a 4-day conversation where we were sending pretty explicit messages, if you know what I mean. I felt nervous yet really excited the first day, and the second day I felt really guilty, but I just couldn't stop. I was also looking for any kind of traces of cheating on my husband's phone, and by the third day, I don't really know why, but I just kept on going. By the fourth day, I felt awful, and I felt like I did something so horrible. So I spoke to this person and I decided to end it right then and there, but I already broke my husband's trust, and he trusted in me blindly. I ruined our marriage, and we built it with so much love. I ruined everything, and this was all just a month ago. Since then, I have gone through different phases. Phase 1 is that I will just keep this hidden for my entire life, and phase 2 is that I will try to find any proofs of when my husband may have cheated in the past, but I came up empty-handed because he didn't. Phase 3 brought about the guilt. Every waking moment I feel like garbage, and how he deserves so much better than me. He told me again today that he hasn't ever been lucky in his life except with me, but I messed him over here as well. He didn't deserve this. He needs to know what his dear wife did to him. He has the right to decide what he wants to do after what I did to him. I want to tell him. I've been wanting to for the past few days, and he can sense the sadness that I feel when I think of telling him, and he will even ask me if everything's okay. But he has some interviews, and if I tell him about me cheating on him, it will just absolutely destroy him, so I can't do it yet. So how do I even tell him about this? This will break him, and I do plan on going to therapy to work on myself, but I can't do that as we don't have enough money for that. Now, I really do love my husband, despite how hard it may be to believe. Do I wait until he gets a job, or do I tell him now? How do I even tell him about this? What should I do? Wow, this is literally devastating. Here you have somebody who is literally claiming, oh yeah, my husband's perfect. He loves me and takes care of me and does all these wonderful things. He's helped me through depression and all this other stuff, and I love him so much. And then she goes on to be like, okay, and by the way, I cheated on him. Like, what is going on right now? That is such a dichotomy here. You don't love this guy. If you loved him, you wouldn't have cheated. And I just love the fact that with people like this, they try to frame this as like, oh, I made a mistake. But it's like, no, that's not a mistake. What you did is literally a calculated decision. You made the choice to send those messages to that guy and entertain this conversation even further. Accidentally bumping into someone on the subway would be a mistake, or dropping something and breaking it on the ground. Like, that's a mistake. That's like an accident and you just didn't mean to do that, and you try to like fix things from there. But this right here, this is not a mistake. This is you literally blowing up your marriage all because you wanted to have some fun for 4 days. Like, how is that the solution for what, 8 months of trouble? And I totally understand moving somewhere new and not knowing the culture or anybody around there, as well as having financial struggles. But where in your brain did you connect the bridge of like, okay, the only way I can fix this is by cheating on my husband? Like, that is crazy in my opinion. You do not deserve this guy at all. And for me, the icing on the cake is you looking for your husband cheating on you, and then coming back empty-handed and being like, oh my gosh, I'm a piece of garbage. And it's like, yes, in this moment in your life, you are a horrible person. The fact that you did this to your husband is unbelievable. So you ask the question of when should you tell him? In my opinion, you should tell him like right away. Because I know if I had someone that I married and I loved, and I said, oh yeah, I'm so lucky to have you, and they were doing this behind my back, I would lose my mind. I wouldn't want to be with that kind of person. Like, that's not fair for me, especially when I'm trying to find a job and, I don't know, have a life. So sure, you didn't ask it, but I'm just gonna say that yes, you are the jerk here, and you definitely have an obligation to tell him the truth, because he does not deserve to be in a situation like this. I want to tell my strict mother about my secret boyfriend, but I'm worried about how she will react, as she has always been very weird about me having a relationship. Because right now I'm at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I really want to tell my mom about my boyfriend. I feel like it would be beneficial, not just for me, but for her as well. Whenever we hang out, I have to lie about where I am, making up excuses just to spend time with him. Sometimes I wonder if something were to happen to me, how would they even know the truth? It's also affecting our relationship because we can't do normal couple activities without me having to come up with a believable lie for my outings. I don't want to keep making up stories behind their backs. I want to come out and tell them, but it feels almost impossible. For reference, I'm a 19-year-old female and my boyfriend is 23. We met while we used to work together, and when we wanted to start seeing each other outside of work, I would lie and say I was going to school on Saturdays just to be with him. I used to go to school on Saturdays, so it seemed like a reasonable and believable excuse. When my mom was looking for someone to teach me how to drive, I introduced her to him, but only as a guy from work who was getting paid to teach me. The money she paid him for my driving driving lessons, he would just give back to me and he taught me how to drive for free. And this also gave us time to hang out outside of work. Now, at first, my mom wasn't fond of him. She just saw him as the guy who offered to teach me how to drive at a cheap price. She would always warn me that while he was teaching me, it would be strictly professional, with nothing more going on. Sometimes she questioned my progress, saying to me, "You've been learning to drive for a whole month, but you're not showing much improvement." And she would even try to say, "Hopefully you're not doing anything else with this guy but driving." And the truth is, we often use our driving lesson as an excuse to go on dates and make out instead. She's always suspected that I might be seeing someone, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. For example, on Valentine's Day, I said I was at school when I was actually at the movies with him. He got me flowers, and since he is my first boyfriend, I wanted to try and keep them. But looking back, I should have just admired them and thrown them away before going home because it caused so much conflict. She was suspicious and asked me who gave me the flowers, and I just lied and said some guy at school who was really into me gave them to me, and I only took them because I wanted to take pictures with them. But she just wasn't buying it this time. She was pissed off, I could tell, but she couldn't fully accuse me of anything. She just kept saying, "You think I'm stupid, don't you?" After she calmed down a bit, I decided to tell her another secret I was hiding to cover up the bigger lie. I thought the best thing to do was to reveal a smaller secret to distract her from the bigger one. So I told her I had something to tell her, and her first guess was to say, "You have a boyfriend, don't you?" To which I replied by saying, "Why do you always have to think it's that?" I then revealed that I had my septum piercing, which is something she was against. She was disappointed, but not as angry as I thought she would be, because it wasn't as bad as what she expected. And this has been going on for quite a while now. And now that I know how to drive, she thinks that I've stopped seeing him. After all, why would I still be in contact with him if it wasn't for driving lessons? If I were to suddenly introduce him as my boyfriend, especially since she's suspected it once or twice before, it would seem like a plot twist. She would feel betrayed and think I tricked her and played her right under her nose. So seriously, how do I make this possible and acceptable? I really like him, and I want my mom to know about his role in my life. She doesn't have to fully accept him as if we're getting engaged tomorrow, but at least know the truth. I'm tired of the lies stacking up onto more lies, but I'm struggling to find a way to tell her without all of this turning into an absolute disaster. I wish I could just tell her, and I wish it was so easy to just tell her some things that I've always wanted to talk to my mom about. But honestly, I can't do it, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I think you need to understand that you are definitely an adult now. You're 19 years old, and you can have a boyfriend if you want one. Like, I can understand that your mom is like super strict and really weird, but at least from my perspective, I think you will feel so much better about all of this if it's just out in the open. And don't get me wrong, you should definitely do what's best for you, because you know your mom way better than anybody else that could possibly like read your story. But from my end, I think it might be a good idea to like say something and be like, "Yeah, I have this boyfriend," because what you're describing sounds like a nightmare. You have to like lie constantly and make up excuses just to spend time with this guy that means a lot to you. So hopefully whatever you decide to do goes well, because what you're describing right now sounds absolutely obnoxious. Am I the jerk for demanding money back from my mother-in-law after she scammed my husband by using our 4-year-old son just to get some cash? Because right now I am very pissed off, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm married to my husband who has a very manipulative and selfish mother. She constantly asks us for money, and we unfortunately give it to her because she always has some kind of sob story. She needs it for cigarettes, car payments for a car she hasn't driven in 2 years, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Well, today was the final straw when she involved my 4-year-old son. She made my husband drive 1 hour to her house to pick her up to come all the way back to our house to visit my son. But then she made up this whole story about how she suddenly can't go anymore because she doesn't have a ride back. Now, my husband said he would drive her back, as he always does that anyways, but oddly enough, she said no. Mind you, she does have a boyfriend of 25 years that she lives with, and he also works and has a job. She said my husband needs to turn around and leave back to our house without her, and she will not be seeing our son today. And on his way out, she begs him for $200 so she can buy a birthday present for my son. She also begged him not to tell me about it. Well, obviously he told me, and I am so pissed off that she seriously tried to get him to keep this from me when it is literally our money. Now, he did give it to her because he always falls for her sob stories and her constant BS. She swears that she will pay it back on October 1st when she gets her government check, but she definitely won't do it because she never paid back a penny of the thousands of borrowed dollars we gave her over the years. And this is just something that she is known for, and I'm sick of it. She pretended as if she wanted to see my son. She made my husband spend over 2 hours of his day off driving when he could have just been relaxing with us, and then she tried to get him to lie to me, which just really set me off more than ever. I told my husband she has until October 1st to give it back to us, because otherwise I'm gonna call her, demand it back, and curse her out. And despite the fact that I will be blocking her permanently, my husband actually said that's a crazy plan and I just need to leave it alone. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? Okay, first of all, you are definitely not the jerk wanting your money back, because your mother-in-law sounds insane. She literally scammed your husband, and she scammed you as well in the process by getting that money from him. And the fact that this is not an isolated incident, and that this keeps happening, in my opinion, really points the problem straight at your husband. Like, this guy might as well be a doormat with money coming out of him. He just lets his mom walk literally all over him all the time. He doesn't have any say in the matter, and he's just like, no, it's fine, just let it go, leave it alone. And it's like, no, you cannot be serious right now. This lady is taking advantage of you. You can't possibly be sitting there and being like, oh, it's fine, she needs the money, because that is clearly not the case. So no, you are not in the wrong in the slightest, and I think you are well within your right to demand your money back. Am I the jerk for refusing to move out, even though my roommate is 7 months pregnant and is demanding that I get out of the house so that her family can have space to live? Here's what happened. Okay, so last week, my roommate, who we will call Becca, found out that she's not only pregnant, but 7 months along. She texted me that we had to talk today, and I assumed that she would be moving out soon so that she can have more space for when the baby comes in. Now, for a bit of context, I'm on a terrible salary, and I cannot afford anywhere else to live. So with that in mind, she wants me to move out right now so she can prepare for the baby. Even if I wanted to move out right now, the apartment rentals in my area are either too expensive or they are well below living standards, so I don't want to move. She went absolutely crazy the moment I told her I wouldn't move out, because according to her, I'm ruining her motherhood experience by not letting her family live together. Now, I pay rent here, and my name is on the lease until at least the end of the year. I'm not going to pull out of the lease, and I told her that if she wants her little family together, then she should be the one to move out, and I will find someone to split the rent with. Well, that made her start crying and saying how I just wanted to ruin her life, to the point that her baby daddy had to console her and tell me to get out of their way already. And I've not heard her stop crying ever since, but I think I'm totally valid that I don't want to leave. So am I the jerk for not wanting to move out? What should I do? No, this is not your problem at all. You are definitely not the jerk for saying, I've got a lease until the end of the year, sorry, but I'm not going. Like, why should you move your entire life around all because your roommate got pregnant? Like, if anybody should move out to find a bigger place, it should be her, because this is truly her problem and not yours. You're not the reason she got pregnant, and you're definitely not responsible for her future family and her child. Which, by the way, how does someone go 7 months without knowing they're pregnant? Like, that is super irresponsible and just so insane in my opinion. So no, I don't think you did anything wrong, and I think you are completely justified in saying that you do not want to move out. Am I the jerk for refusing to cancel child support from my sister after I had to become the guardian of her daughter that she was literally neglecting? Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old male, and I've been taking care of my sister's daughter for around 6 years. This all started when my sister got arrested for felony theft and substance charges. She's been a longtime addict. She's been a poor mother and a family manipulator. No one else in the family really stepped up, so I offered to take my niece in while my sister did some substance treatment to avoid jail time. From the very beginning, my niece, who was around 10 at the time, didn't want anything to do with her mom, and I thought that was odd, but over the first few months that I had her, my niece opened up about her mom treating her very poorly. So I sought a guardianship for my niece and told my sister that I would not willingly send my niece back to her unless my sister got off the substances and sorted her life out. Well, my sister initiated a legal fight with me to terminate the guardianship. I grew to love this kid like my own, and I didn't want to send her back to a bad environment. It cost me 6 figures over the course of a year and a half in legal fees, but eventually I won. I managed to marshal substantial evidence of my sister's ongoing substance problems, and the court relied upon a third party who basically reported favorably about my niece in my care and about my niece's negative view of her mother. At some point in the legal process, as I was shelling out 5-figure monthly legal bills, I learned that as my niece's guardian, I was entitled to child support. So I filled the forms to seek it, and I ended up winning that as well. Now, the state oversees the support award and is apparently pretty thorough in seeking it, garnishing paychecks and even bank accounts. But now, years later, I'm starting to get pressure from the other family to forgive the child support. I have family reaching out to me saying my sister is doing better and just cannot get ahead, having to give up portions of her paycheck every month. With back amounts, it's like $30,000 in back support that I am owed. Now, I don't really need it if I'm being really honest. I make a good living, and it's better than anyone else in my family. In all likelihood, my sister's debt will never be paid in full, but I don't want to let it go. I've started telling relatives, hey, listen, that's great that you want to help out my sister. Why don't you pay me the $30,000 in debt, plus the present value of the award until my niece is 18? Only then will I forgive my sister sister's obligation. And my relatives have all been huffy at that response. My sister initiated a fight with me, knowing full and well that she was back on the substances, that she lied about it, and got caught in open court. It was all such a waste of a large amount of money in my prime years that I would have otherwise saved and set aside to retire on, or pay for my niece's education. And you know what? I'm still mad about it. And my sister can owe me it pretty much forever for all I care. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. That child support literally goes to the niece that she's neglecting. She's not taking care of her kid. She hasn't done anything to help out this child. So yes, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely demand child support payments. Like, are you kidding me right now? And it's honestly so disgusting that family would be like, wait, stop, you need to forgive her. She can't get ahead on her paychecks. It's like, are you kidding me right now? These people stood on the sidelines and idly did nothing about this and are now taking the side of the addict instead of, I don't know, the kid who was affected by it. Like, these child support payments go to this kid. And to that end, I love the way the original poster responded. They basically said, oh, you want to help her out? Okay, pay me the money then. Because suddenly these family members scatter like roaches the second they gotta actually, like, I don't know, do something about the situation. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all in this scenario, and I think that you're completely justified in everything that you're doing. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.